There we go. Hey everyone. It's Friday, the 6th of
Someone can't
February. It's
hear
2
you.
o'clock. You can't hear. You can hear me okay? No, you can't hear me. Can
That's
you not
weird.
hear me? Do people hear me?
Good now. Literally,
Oh,
all the sound worked right until it switched over to the biblical scholarly ramblings clip, and then my audio just there was nothing, and I'm like,
oh no. Oh
weird.
dear. Wow. Well, we are just picking right up from where we left off last night. People who know I could probably, it's fun. Maybe I'll share. It's Friday afternoon, February the 6th. It kind of actually sort of looks like spring out here, which is nice. It was 16 degrees yesterday. It's supposed to be, I think it's pretty close to that again today, and the sun is shining, which is pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's pretty good. Oh no, that's not where I'm going. I'm going here. So how you doing, Vish?
You're
While I
gonna need to be more
try and
specific than that.
find my stuff. Yes. Let's see. Um how is um your I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Talk about something for a minute.
Okay. This week in Southern California, the Santa Ana winds have been giving us a really uncomfortable heat wave. It was in the high 80s, low 90s for most of the week. And no, I'm not going to convert that to Celsius. I don't feel like it. I think that's like 29 ish, something like that. And
Wow.
today it is overcast. It's sunny. It feels good. It's in the late 60s, 70s. It's finally feeling pleasant again. Gets nice and chilly at night. And hopefully we don't end up sweating our butts off for another week. That'll be great.
Hopefully, right? Wow.
Yep.
That's wild. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna I'll share this because this is how we went out. I don't think you watched last night, did you? The reading stream.
Yeah, I did.
Did you watch
Saw me.
last? Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
you
you were
did.
here
That's
in
right.
fact.
Because
Gosh.
you're the crazy person who suggested Obadiah for
I
our
like
next
Obadiah. What? Man. It's not even that long. Come on.
No, and it's not even the length. I actually haven't looked at
And it's not
all
poetry.
at Obadiah, but this is Jason Hare is joining me next week, and he texted me. He's like, "Obadiah? Really? Really?" So I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna look and see. Maybe Obadiah, but this is yeah, this is how we ended things last night. No, where's my thing? How come it's not playing? This isn't even working. Why isn't this working? So, I can't. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's not important. Things are going excellent today. Alright. So I am such a professional. If I could finish my entire hot coffee right now, I would have to, just because of how swimmingly this has gone so far. So here we are. We're going to look at a beloved story from the Bible today. I think it'll be it sort of feels like after last week, especially when you do some of these really heavy but very important streams, sometimes it feels like you could use a palate cleanser. So
Mhm.
the story of David and Goliath is a good palate cleanser. It's a
Justice
great
for
story.
Elhanan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Uh but I mean, yes and no, because I feel like the story itself stands on its own merit. Uh and I don't believe that the story itself ever it probably never had Elchanan playing the role of David in this story, and that's part of what makes the story so great is the drama in it. It's not just that David kills Goliath. It's the lead up. It's the dialogue that takes place. It's, his oldest brother Eliab throwing a hissy fit about the fact that that David's
Yeah.
there on the battlefield. It's the taunting
What are
between
you doing here,
uh
sheep boy?
Goliath, yeah, and David. It's all of this stuff makes that tale, and I believe we'll talk about where this story comes from as we go through here. But I believe that that was never a story that featured Elchanan. A Justice for Elchanan
I
T-shirt.
think you
Yeah,
should do that. I would support
that's a
this.
good one. Yeah, I like that idea
And
too.
my personal
So I
take, because I'm
mhm,
team Justice for Elhanan, is that
mhm.
the story originally was his story, but, David's way cooler. He's the king. Who's Elhanan? He's nobody.
Yeah, but I don't think I'll just say this again, I don't think, that's the story. That was the super dramatic story that we have.
I think
I
Elhanan's
don't in
gonna
other
change my
words
mind.
well, we'll talk about right? I'll point some things out that will hopefully, sway your thinking, but Um, I don't think you can just swap out the name of David for Elkanah in this story. You can't do that.
That's not what I'm saying. I just think that the
Uh,
original narrative, like the core of it, was a story that was attributed to a guy named Elhanan, and later on, somebody very
Absolutely.
creatively, possibly somebody, many somebodies were like, "Yo, this would be way cooler if it was David," and they like
They
embellished it
sure
and dressed
did.
it up and made it a lot more
Yeah.
cool and dramatic.
And we will see how some of that happens. So, I came across a video this last week from Sean McDowell, and I actually think I haven't covered anything from Sean McDowell since he had my a former teacher of mine, uh, Professor Craig Evans, on his channel, talking about a Dead Sea Scrolls. I think that was the last time I ever touched anything that Sean McDowell did. So this is kind of new in that I've done very little with Sean McDowell, but he's a very popular Christian apologist. People really like Sean McDowell because he's very approachable. Seems like a really nice guy. Seems like a guy that you could hang out with. He's not an overtly crazy person, you know, on the face of it. He is not an overtly bigoted person, although it's definitely there. It's all there, but he's not one of these guys who's just going to come out and say things that his peers will with his full chest. And I think that disarms people a lot. I think people find him much more approachable
I
for
mean,
those reasons.
it's easier to become popular when you're pleasant and genial.
Mhm, mhm. But yes, it's true. But that doesn't change the fact that he continues to hold on to like legitimately terrible ideas and terrible positions. It doesn't change the fact that I think he, overtly supports and promotes statements of falsehood and uh you know, lies when it comes to, it continues when it comes to, the legacy of his father and the story that his own dad would tell about his past is one that is obviously massively embellished and yet it's one that Sean continues to just lean into time and time again. So it's like, you know, all those things are still there, regardless of the other things. So he did a video recently, and I think we'll just start with the video. There's a super chat though, right away, isn't there? From Tad is Mad. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Goliath was, in fact, killed by a passing seagull, which dropped a turtle on his head.
Very common.
It happened a lot.
Mhm.
Thank you. That seems like a fine explanation to me. So let's pull up the video. This is Sean McDowell. Sean McDowell teaches at Biola University, and he has a guest on his show here by the name of I almost said Keith Hernandez, but it's not Keith Hernandez. It is Dominic S. Hernandez is a professor of Old Testament at Talbot School of Theology. That is the graduate school that is attached to Biola University. So he probably teaches undergrad stuff at Biola too. So he is a proper Old Testament scholar, and they're going to have a conversation about this amazing story in 1 Samuel chapter 17 about David and Goliath, and some of the textual historical issues that come to bear on it. So
Okay.
I think we just start.
The story of David and Goliath is one of the most well-known and beloved stories in the entire Bible. Many people are not aware that there's a significant controversy about who actually killed Goliath. Here to help make sense of it is my colleague, my friend, Old Testament professor, Dr. Dominic Hernandez. You ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready, Sean. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, this version that you described to me is
in the name of David Lynch. Let's rock.
Let's rock. You ready to rock and roll?
From 1 Samuel chapter 17. Is this the consistent version we have in ancient texts? If we go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, Masoretic texts, Septuagint, etc., is there consistency? There might be some differences in some of the details, but as a whole, the way you describe that, is that the consistent story we have in the biblical text?
This is the consistent story that we have in the biblical text, though we're about to move into some things that are gapped in, for example, the Samuel text from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So what we can say is in 1 Samuel 17, we have this story, but the issue lies elsewhere.
Okay, good. So the debate is not about understanding 1 Samuel 17 when it comes to the death of Goliath. Comes into another passage and a seemingly different version of the death of Goliath in 2 Samuel 21:19. So I'll go ahead and
before
read it
we
for us,
move
and I
on
want you to kind of
to
explain
2
why
Samuel 21. Let's pause there for a minute, because I think there's a few things to talk about at the outset here. The question was raised right away. Is this a consistent story in 1 Samuel chapter 17? And the answer was yes.
Let's
and then
go
he
to
said
the tape.
something about let's go to the tape. Let's do that. Do you wanna bring the text up? I don't think we need to read the whole thing, but there's a few things I want to point out at the outset. So let's look at the story. I think everybody is generally familiar with the story of David and Goliath. Just maybe I can provide a little bit of a recap here. There was a war.
I can give you. I was gonna say I can just give you the summary. Is that short, shrimpy king compared or future king? Local shepherd boy kills giant dude with a rock.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes. That was very concise. Thank you. The story begins with a description. There's war between Saul and the Philistines, and they meet in the Valley of Elah, which is at this place called what's the name of the place? It's on one of my slides. So it's the Valley of Elah. They meet there, and there's this giant human named Goliath who is taunting the Israelites, and they're scared. And he comes out and just taunts them on a regular basis. And then we're told that Jesse has Jesse the Bethlehemite. His 3 oldest sons are actually with Saul in the battle. And he's sending David back and forth from his house to the lines in order to deliver supplies to his brothers and to gather news, and then to return home and report to his father. And David goes out there. He hears the giant. He's upset about this. He finds out that Saul has promised a reward of wealth and love, the hand of his daughter Michal, in exchange to whatever Israelite man will kill the giant. And everyone's too scared. David is not. He goes out all alone. The text is clear to point this out in a few places. He's all alone. Nobody else is helping him out here. And he kills him with one shot from the sling, hits him in the forehead. The giant dies. David cuts his head off, and then all the Israelites rush the fleeing Philistine army, and they plunder them. David takes the head of Goliath back to Jerusalem and puts it on display. The end. That's the story. So now, what the question raised in the first place is, what does Sean mean when he asks Dominic this question about whether this is a consistent story? Dominic says, yeah, no problems with the story. He said in the non-gapped versions. Any thoughts on what he's? I'm pretty sure I know what he means by this. What do you think he means when he's responding to Sean in this way? Do you have any?
I'm not familiar with non-gapped or gapped or whatever he's referring to.
I'm not either, but I'm just kind of listening to the way the conversation progresses. I'm quite sure that what he's saying is that all the manuscripts that we have and all the versions that we have of 1 Samuel 17 of this story in 1 Samuel 17, there's no major textual differences. That, it looks pretty similar in the Septuagint. We only have the one manuscript from the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's 4Q Samuel A, 4Q 51, which preserves just parts of verses 3 to 8 of the story.
Also, just before we get too far, I did want to speak to this. The sling, if you're just thinking about a little handheld, like Dennis the Menace sling or a slingshot, that's not what they're using. If you've ever seen even someone right now in the modern age use a sling,
yeah, these things are,
that ish is deadly. Because
yeah,
I guess the length of the sling string or cord, it's long enough to where once you get it swinging fast enough, it's picked up enough momentum that when you release the stone, you easily could put it through somebody's head. Easily.
oh yeah, yep.
So yeah,
No, it's pretty badass.
Mhm.
These weapons from antiquity. Yeah, it's not it's not small shit. So yeah.
So
Now
that reminds me. One more
Okay.
thing and then I'll stop. Maya just reminded me, for anybody who's here already, hopefully there will be more, but if they come in late, I don't really want to repeat this, but we're here to learn some history. We're here to talk about the text. We are not here to do theology. I don't care what your bespoke interpretations are. We're just here to learn. Okay, so this is an open classroom type of deal. If you're religious or not, if it doesn't really matter, just
Doesn't
show up
matter.
and learn. Yeah, don't harsh the vibe. Okay, sorry.
Should we put the rules up on the?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, you can, like, the no
Oops,
proselytizing, no
I'll leave
trolling,
those up for a bit.
is that people frequently who are sharing esoteric quackery don't think of it that way. And, like, the day I wrote
Fair.
this banner, I was just being kind of tongue-in-cheek about it, but it's I came up with one earlier today. It's like, come to learn, not to preach. We're studying history, not theology. That's, I think, a little easier to digest. So
So I think that yes, the not to preach message
Yeah.
should be the one that everybody understands. So
Yep.
yeah. All right. So let's
All right,
continue
we
here.
telling.
So no major textual differences, textual discrepancies when you compare the versions and when you compare the manuscripts. And they just gloss right over this point, which is really important. There's other stuff going on in this story that we need to think about. There is what Dominic and Sean are going to set their focus on is textual criticism. That is, exploring the manuscripts and the versions that we have in order to arrive at a clearer understanding of what the oldest version, the oldest form of this text looked like, which is fine. That is one of the ways in which we critically evaluate the literature of the Bible, but it's not the only way. They're going to also talk a little bit about historical criticism and especially source criticism, which is not just limited to the Pentateuch. We tend to think of source criticism as something that it's applied just to the Torah in the exploration of the boundaries between the sources that were, fused together to make the Torah. And in some ways, it's easiest to see that kind of work there, but it's not the only place. There's all sorts of places throughout the Bible where we as scholars will talk about underlying source material. And this is one of them. The story of David and Goliath is a story that itself scholars will point out readily, and most are agreed that this story in itself was crafted from at least two sources. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that point. I am going to show one place in this story where that is abundantly clear. But I think the other thing that is important to note about this story of David and Goliath, and also one of the reasons why we come to suspect that that there was something else behind this, there was stuff that preceded this version that we have, is because this is an origin story. This is a story of introduction to this major character, David, within the narrative block, within the traditions of ancient Israel. And it's not the only one, even within the books of Samuel. So we're going to look at just a couple of things here. First of all, we're going to look at this, which is the introduction of David into the story of David and Goliath, which actually starts, this is verse 12 right here. The first 11 verses of this describe the setting, right? The situation of the battle in the valley, the situation of the confrontation in the valley of Elah, where the Philistines and the forces of Saul are facing off against one another. That's where we first meet Goliath. But now there's a transition here at the end of verse 11 and the beginning of verse 12 where we meet David. And we're just going to read this, okay? And I'll just read, this is the revised JPS 2023 edition. It's on the screen. So we'll just read that. David was the son of a certain Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah. First of all, I want to point out here, for those of you who are reading the Hebrew text, okay, not here. I thought it was here. It's in the we'll get to that. So never mind. We'll continue reading. Okay. the son of a certain Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah, whose name was Jesse. He had 8 sons. And in the days of Saul, the man was already old, advanced in years. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had left and gone with Saul to the war. The names of his 3 sons who had gone to the war were Eliab, the firstborn, the next Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest. How far am I going here? Verse 18. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest had followed Saul, and David would go back and forth from attending on Saul to shepherd his father's flock at Jerusalem. The Philistines stepped forward, mourning. Oh, was that it? No. Sorry, what was that?
To shepherd his flock at Bethlehem.
Oh, what did I say? I said Jerusalem, didn't
You said
I?
Jerusalem. I think you meant
Oopsies.
Bethlehem.
I meant Bethlehem. Okay. The Philistines stepped forward morning and evening. No, sorry. The Philistine stepped forward morning and evening and took his stand for 40 days. Jesse said to his son David, "Take an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and carry them quickly to your brothers in the camp. Take these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000. Find out how your brothers are and bring some token from them." So go to the front, deliver goods. Yes.
Corn? Why is this saying corn in
Parched
verse 17?
corn? I
Parched
don't know.
corn,
I
like-
didn't even an ephah of this.
I'm like, yeah, that's
an ephah of the
definitely not
kali.
like maize. That's
Well,
not
no,
a thing
definitely
that was
not.
happening.
And offhand, I don't know what the word is. We could look it up. We could actually probably just look it up on Safari, can't we? I think you can do that. I'll
Yep.
look it up though. What does it say?
Parched grain, roasted grain.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like they're sort of Americanizing.
I'm just
Build
like,
it, you know, for your North American audience, maybe, I guess. I just glossed that. I glossed right past that.
because
I didn't
most
even
people
see
think
that.
maize when they think of corn, and that is not something that existed outside of the North and South American continents. That is
It
a
sure
new
isn't.
world plant. And I know that, as Katie Lewis mentioned, that it can be a synonym for grain, but most people, when they hear corn, they will think of maize. So just, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna put up on the screen just a couple of points in summary of what we just read. And now think about this too. Like what I just read provides
Sorry.
a very, I think, clear, concise introduction to a story and to the characters in this story, right? So here we have 1 Samuel 17. Here's a few things that we learned from this text, okay? We learned about this man, Jesse, the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, and he has 8 sons. We are told that the names of his 3 oldest sons who have gone to war with Saul are Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, and that his youngest of the 8 sons is David, who runs errands and carries news for his father. So he runs supplies to his brothers at the fight, and then brings news home from what's happening at the front to his dad. This is the situation that we have at the beginning of this story. Now, one of the reasons why scholars look at this story and say, you know, this doesn't look like it was originally necessarily a David story, or even the only early story about David and his introduction to the text, is because it kind of looks like there's a competing tradition of who David was and where he came from. So now let's take a look at that in the previous chapter. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Starting in, I believe, where is it? I gotta bring
Verse
my notes
14
back up here.
is what you had.
Verse 14. Yes. So here in verse 14, we have another story that appears before this one in the book of Samuel about David. And we're just going to read this to the end of verse 23. Now, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of Yahweh, actually, had departed from Saul, and a bad spirit from
Evil.
Yahweh began to terrify him. That sounds wonderful.
Ruach
So
ra'ah.
the slaves, or you're just reading the ruach.
Yeah, it's not just bad, it's
Okay.
evil.
Evil. Yes, the spirit of evil from Yahweh. Okay. Saul's slaves said to him, "An evil spirit of Yahweh is terrifying you. Let our Lord give the order, and
But
your
it says Ruach Elohim Ra. Doesn't use tetragrammaton. I know I'm being pedantic.
Oh, yes, you are. But it didn't earlier.
It did not.
It did not. That's interesting,
The
right?
Ruach of
It
Adonai
said it's
departed.
the Ruach Ra'ah Me'et
And then a
Adonai.
Ruach Ra'ah.
Yeah.
Me'et.
So look at
Adonai.
that. So it's,
Yeah.
well, that's interesting. So
Mhm.
okay. But you know, some of this too, you know what? Some of this might I expect when I look at something like this, because
Yeah.
this is dialogue, right?
Mhm.
So within this writer's mind, there's probably a conscious effort to make sure that the characters in his story are not just saying the name of Yahweh willy-nilly. They're, you know, he's careful to point out that yes, see, they did this correctly, they did this properly, they didn't use the name of Yahweh, they said Elohim. All right. So let our Lord give the order, and your slaves in attendance on you will look for someone who is skilled at playing the lyre. Whenever the evil spirit of God comes over you, he will play it and you will feel better. So Saul said to his courtiers, his slaves, "Find me someone who can play well and bring him to me." That's the setup here. One of the slaves spoke up. "Look, I have seen a son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is skilled at music. He is a stalwart fellow and a warrior, sensible in speech and handsome in appearance. And Yahweh is with him." Pause here for a second. This is what I wanted to point out earlier. For those of you who can read and are reading the Hebrew text, take a look here at the description of Jesse as a Bethlehemite. It looks a little, it's interesting the way that this is phrased. This is Leyisai Beit Halachmi, literally Jesse of the house of bread, the house of bread guy. It's not in the 2 Samuel 17 story. He is Jesse of Bethlehem. Here he's Jesse Beit Ha Lachmi with the definite article of the house. You know, the house of the bread guy might be the best way to literally translate this. That's going to come in as important when we look at some of these other texts. So I have observed a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite who is skilled in music. He's a stalwart fellow and a warrior, sensible in speech and handsome in appearance, and Yahweh is with him. Whereupon Saul sent messengers to Jesse to say, "Send me your son David, who is with the flock." Jesse took a donkey with bread, a skin of wine, and a kid, and sent them to Saul by his son David. So David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul took a strong liking to him and made him one of his arms bearers. How far are we going? 23. Saul sent word to Jesse, Let David remain in my service, for I am pleased with him. So here in chapter 16, we discover a few things. I actually think I cut off the earlier part of this verse, this passage. Let me look at this just again here. Yes. Okay. If you want to go up to so that's this is Saul's introduction to Jesse and to David, which is interesting because what happens in the next story when David enters the action at the battle and encounters Saul, it almost feels like this is the first time that Saul has been introduced to David, even though here in chapter 16 previously he's met him before. Sorry, yeah, I did cut this off, Vish. If you could go back up to chapter 16, verse 1. I forgot to include this.
Yeah, I was gonna say they need to pick
in the
David
slides.
first.
Yeah. Yes. So here we go. This is the introduction in chapter 16 to David. And Yahweh said to Samuel, how long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and set out. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, again, Beit Halachmi, for I have decided on one of his sons to be king. Samuel replied, how can I go? If Saul hears of it, he will kill me. Yahweh answered, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to Yahweh. Invite Jesse to the sacrificial feast, and then I will make known to you what you shall do. You shall appoint for me the one I point out to you. Samuel did as Yahweh commanded. When he came to Bethlehem, the elders of the city were out in alarm to meet him and went out in alarm to meet him. Do you come in peace on a peaceful errand? They're super scared of Samuel.
Oh God, it's a prophet.
Right? It's a prophet. We don't like it when you guys show up. It usually means something bad's about to happen.
Always talking smack when you show up.
Yeah. So he says, yes, I've come to sacrifice to Yahweh. Purify yourselves and join me at the sacrificial feast. He also instructed Jesse and his sons to purify themselves and invited them to the sacrificial feast. When they arrived and he saw Eliab, he thought, surely Yahweh's anointed stands here. But Yahweh said to Samuel, pay no attention to his appearance or his stature, for I have rejected him. For not as humans see, humans only see what is visible, but God sees into the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab, and he had him pass before Samuel. And he said, Yahweh has not chosen this one either. Next, Samuel presented Shammah. And again, he said, God has not chosen this one either. Thus, Jesse presented 7 sons before Samuel. And not 4. But yeah, but in these stories, we learn a couple things, right? And I'll just bring this down here. We learn a couple things, and they look surprisingly similar to the things that appear in 1 Samuel 17. We learn that Jesse of Bethlehem has 8 sons, right? Mm-hmm. He brought 7 before him, and then there's one more yet. There's David left. We learn the names of his 3 oldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, and the name of his youngest son, David. We never learn the names of any of the other 4 sons of Jesse.
Not important.
Not important. But then we learn this, right? David then, when I read this part at the beginning, David then is enlisted into the service of Saul. And it says he goes to live with him at the house, right? In 1 Samuel chapter 16. So what we have here, and what scholars point out, are that these appear to be independent, separate traditions of introduction to this major character that's going to dominate this part of the Deuteronomistic history, which follows David. So in the one, he's already in the service of Saul. It says actually he's like his armor bearer, the one who accompanies him out to the battle, which then makes it weird when in, the very next chapter, they're all out at war and David is not there with Saul, where you would think he would be if he was his armor bearer. So there's
handling the
these
armor.
these are probably different independent stories of introduction to David that probably were parts of individual sources once upon a time. So
Also-
right away, yeah.
I think it's interesting that Yishai Jesse named one of his sons Avinadav. Like, wait,
Yeah.
who's your dad? Is it Nadav or is it Jesse? Like, I think that's funny. A little bit.
It's always fun when when that happens.
For the
that's good.
audience, Avi means my father, and Nadav is a proper name. So one kid's name literally means my dad is Nadav, but it's like Jesse's his
Even
dad.
though
so
he's
it's like,
Jesse.
yeah, it's funny to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So let's bring the text up again. I want to look at something else in chapter 17 here, which I think is really interesting. And that is in verses 50 to 50. Is it 50 to 51 or 51 to 52? 50 to 51 here. So something else just within this story of David and Goliath. So just, one of the issues is at the outset that the story of David and Goliath is an introductory story to David, which is different from another introductory story to David that is also preserved in 2 Samuel. But now, even within the story of David and Goliath, it looks like there might be different competing versions of this story. And there's a number of clues throughout the text which indicate this. Here's one of them. This is how the story reads when it says that David actually killed Goliath. It says, well, back up, maybe let's read verse 49 here. It says that David put in his hand into his bag. He took out a stone and slung it. It struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead. I love that. And he fell face down on the ground. So
Donk.
David overpowered the Philistine with sling and stone. He struck him down and he killed him. David had no sword in his hand. Struck him down and killed him with the stone. In the very next verse, it says, so David ran up and stood over the Philistine, grasped his sword and pulled it from the sheath, and with it it says dispatched him. He killed him.
Killed him.
He killed him and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their warrior was dead, they ran. So right away, we have a question here. Did David kill the Philistine giant with a sling and a stone? Or did he kill him with his sword? Now,
Hear me
one
out.
of the things, yes.
Since I'm not an evangelical trying to harmonize the text to massage uncomfortable theology.
You are a Jewish reader now trying to harmonize the text.
Completely. No, I'm just saying, like, I don't have any rule dogmas.
Yeah.
I had read this previously as David grabbing Goliath's sword because he didn't have one. He's like, I'm gonna use this dude's thing.
Doesn't have one. Yep.
And
that is totally plausible reading too, right?
Right.
Like,
but he
that
hits
works.
him in the head with the stone, and guy's like, clonk. So he fells him, and we know that usually injuries that serious will kill you, most likely right where you stand. But you got to be sure. So you just cut his head off. Finish job. Make sure it's like the equivalent of double tapping in a video game.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see them as conflicting, but I'm not like, oh my God, they can't possibly conflict. Like, yeah, they could. It happens all the time, but it
Yeah.
doesn't require them to be
So
conflicting.
what Vish is pointing out is there is absolutely a way to harmonize these two texts. It's still weird that the text says he killed him with the sling, with the rock embedded in his forehead, and then he killed him with the sword. It's also odd that the text makes a point of him not having a sword in his hand, and then it says that he killed him by cutting his head off with a sword. His sword, and that part is ambiguous. His sword could be David's sword, or it could be
It's cooler
the giant
if it's
sword.
Goliath's sword.
What's that?
It's
What was
cooler
that?
if it's Goliath's sword.
It certainly is. It certainly
but also
is.
they're discussing this in the chat. Like, some people think that the decapitation was the killing blow, and the giant, you can concuss them or render them paralyzed, perhaps.
This is
And Simone
certainly
is saying,
how
hey, they're both from the root word moat. And Jason clarifies, I think Lamotat, or I don't think I got the Nakuda that right. Anyway, means to finish off, like you for sure made sure he was absolutely dead. So there's a way to look at
there's
this where it's
ways
like,
to do
hey,
it.
he incapacitated him and possibly rendered him at death's door, which, I mean, you could just leave him there and let him die, because brain damage, it'll kill you if you don't treat it. Concussions are rough. And then you just are like, I'm gonna make sure. And you
There's ways to do it. There are ways to do it. No question.
I mean, yeah, like Katie Lewis says, you get a trophy this way if you take his head. So, 'cause I wouldn't be lugging that dude all the way back to Jerusalem. Forget that. The head's way easier to carry.
Certainly. I'm just pointing out that this is not that you can separate these phrases and you end up with two completely different ways in which this story ends. The giant is killed with a sling and David had no sword, or the giant was killed with the sword. And I'll say this much as well. The idea that the giant was killed with a sword is also supported by other parts of the text. So it is not clear. There are sources at work within just this story. It is not clear that that this is all. This looks like a division between sources, factoring in a variety of features of the whole thing. And then he hanged him in the party's field, and the money swelled it, and
absolutely, yeah. The way that these conflict, I feel like, is not the same as the way that Judas's death conflicts. It's like,
definitely not. Definitely,
you know, I feel like that's a much more obvious, like, no, these are two independent stories than this one.
No question.
Okay, sure, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Of course, those are two separate stories that are presented in two completely different gospels, right?
Right.
Here you have and so that's, I mean, one of the other things that you have happening here is an editor. If these do come from separate traditions of the story of the death of the giant Philistine, then you have the situation where an editor is also working them together and, you know, creating, because I mean they're literally two sentences right next to each other. So
Also,
he is combining them, right?
Another thing we take for granted is we in the modern age can just sit here and look at the text whenever we want. It's in our hand, it's in our phone, it's like sitting on our shelves. We can just do that. They didn't just have random copies floating around. Very few people had copies of this. So what to us is like, why would they leave these obvious contradictions in? Everyone's not walking around with their own copy of this to just reference it. Like, you hear someone read it or, you know, whatever, and you don't hear them read it all the time. So careful listening, you would go, huh, wait a minute. But by the time you're processing, like, oh, wait, they're on to like the next part of the narrative. So do you think some guy's going to come up to them afterward and be like, hey, priest or elite guy, can you rewind? Actually, can you go back to the part where David killed Goliath and tell me if it was the stone or the sword? I don't know. We take a lot of that for granted.
We do. So here, I'm just pointing this out, right? David kills, this is literally what the text says. David kills Goliath with the sling. In the very next verse, it says literally what it says. David kills Goliath with the sword. Okay. So now we're gonna move back into the video, but for starters, they are underselling. They are underselling all the stakes involved with this story, right? Them just going, no, there's no textual issues at all with the story of David and Goliath. From a text critical perspective, that's generally true, but you got to go a little bit deeper. There's lots of questions that we have with regards to this story of David and Goliath as it is contained within 1 Samuel chapter 17 and as it is contained within the running narrative of 1
To me,
Samuel.
The issue of conflict here isn't, was it the sword or the stone? The issue to me personally is David or Elhanan. But
that's where we're going. So
I'm like, I don't really care.
We
killed him.
We haven't got to that yet. We're going to get to that now, and maybe just even back the video up like 5 seconds, because Sean is going to introduce the issue here.
Okay.
In 2 Samuel 21:19. So I'll go and read it for us, and I want you to kind of explain why this matters. It says, and there was again war with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, the son of Jaireh-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So the story he's read for Samuel 17 says it's David. Now we've got somebody else here, Elhanan, who kills him. What's going on?
What's going on? All right.
For Elhanan.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you have I've got it here, Vish. So mine's better. So but keep your finger on
I got them all in different tabs.
Okay, keep your finger on 1 Samuel 17. Okay, because we're gonna go back and look at verses 1 to 11 again. All right. 2 Samuel chapter 21 has this. Now, this takes place. There's a few places within the story of David where we're introduced to fighting men within his forces who have done particularly valorous things to have their names immortalized as warriors for all time, because these are great achievements of battle. One of these appears in 2 Samuel 21. So there is an accounting of a variety of different great warriors of David. And then we come across this one in verse 19. There's the Hebrew text. There is my English translation. Then the war once again broke out with the Philistines in Gov. And Elhanan, the son of Jaireh-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, and here I'm just going to point this out again. This is Elhanan ben Jaireh-Oregim, Beit Halachmi, just like it appeared in 1 Samuel 16, right, to describe Jesse as the Bethlehemite. Elhanan, son of Jaireh-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gathite, and the wood of his spear was like a weaver's beam. Now, some have suggested...
Pun.
Yes.
Pun. A pun.
A pun.
Yeah.
Which one? Where's the pun?
Jaireh-Oregim.
Oh, yes.
and whose
Probably
spirit
not, though.
chaffed like it.
Yeah.
Or a game.
Yes. So this is actually probably a scribal error, but
Cooler if it's a pun, though.
it's cooler if it's a pun.
Because then that's dramatic.
And maybe it is. It's it's Yare of the Weavers, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Elchanan, son of Yare of the Weavers. Yeah. Pun is fun. Let's
I mean, they're spelled
entertain
exactly the same. So
exactly the same.
Like,
So
cool.
it has been
Yeah.
suggested that and the chronicler thinks that this is a scribal error. So we'll give him some. We'll talk about him in a minute. But now, some have wanted to suggest that a couple of things. This maybe Goliath might be a fairly common name, and one of the reasons for thinking that is that we don't have much of any Philistine text, epigraphs. Not very little survives, but we do have a few things, and among the few things that we have mention of this name, Goliath. So the suggestion has been made. This is probably just a really common Philistine name. So maybe this is another Goliath who also happened to come from Gath. Gath is actually a pretty big city too. Just when on the basis of the archaeology, it was a sizable city on the coastal plain in the Shephelah there.
Also, I'm noticing something else here, like in verse 18. Sibbachai, the Hahushati, killed Soph, who was begotten of the Rapha. And that reminds me of the Rephaim, like the ones like, we can't go and take the land. They're huge. They're giants. They're going to crush us like a water.
Yes.
And I think they were, just using hyperbole there. I don't think they were actually giants there. But maybe they were just slightly taller folks than normal. Who knows? Who cares? And then you've got the same thing. He, too, was born of the Rapha. Like, he's of that stock, I guess.
Yeah. So this is it's and this just it's about amplifying the achievements of these great men who fought in David's army,
they
right?
Giants. They didn't just have
Yes.
spears, man. They were like spears. They were so big. They were like a weaver's beam, man.
Yeah. Now,
your chariots were the size of trucks.
And this phrase at the end here is important for dispelling this notion, because I want to say we can eliminate this right at the outset that this is a different giant, a different Goliath. It is not. And the reason we know that is because the wood of his spear was like a weaver's beam. Bring up 1 Samuel 17. Starting in verse 1, because let's look at how Goliath is described in the story at the beginning. And remember, at this point in this is the beginning of the story where David has not been, nobody's this. It's just Saul and the Israelites facing off against the Philistine. There's the name of the place there that I couldn't remember. Ephes Damim. The Philistines assembled.
Something blood?
Yeah.
Ephes Ulato. I know this from liturgy. I don't remember what the context is. Simone will get it.
Okay.
Ephes Ulato. So Ephes Damim.
All right. So the Philistines assembled their forces for battle. They massed at Sokal in Judah and encamped at Ephes Damim. Between Soko and Azekah, Saul and the rest of Israel's side massed and camped in the valley of Elah. They drew up their line of battle against the Philistines, with the Philistines stationed on the hill and Israel stationed on the opposite hill. The ravine was between them. A champion of the
Mhm.
Philistine forces stepped forward. His name was Goliath of Gath, and he was 6 cubits and a span tall, which is extremely tall. And this is where, I think what Vish is getting at about how these, some of these adversaries of the warriors of David are these giants descended from the Rephaim, or, the sons of Anakim, or the
Yeah.
Nephilim.
Yeah.
That's where some of this comes into play. Importantly, one of the textual variants that appears in the Septuagint version of this story is here, where Goliath is only 4 cubits as opposed to 6. So he's not like gigantic. He's very, very tall.
Yeah.
But not unnaturally so. So
That's another thing that,
at
like, we did a whole series on Dapper Dinosaur's channel about, giants in the Bible, giants allegedly found usually in the 19th century, but oh no, the skeletons all went missing. You can't
Yeah.
just hit a scale bar and make humans bigger without causing incredible problems health-wise and gravity-wise and bone density-wise. Like,
Oh God, right?
this is
Yeah.
not like a video game. You can't just go, oh, now they're 9 feet tall. They have to have the equivalent bone density and, like, tendon
Yes.
strength and all these other things, and that's not gonna happen. They're not
It's pretty
just
wild. Yeah.
slider scale video game bigger people. So, yeah. Even if you wanna
Yeah.
say that they were giants, they're no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Also,
no, it's
Simone, as I predicted, did bail me out. FS Ulato's FS is nothing. So FS dummy would be like maybe place of no
No.
blood.
the place of no blood. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you think about it too, with the way that this story progresses, there wasn't a battle between armies where a lot of blood was shed. One guy was killed and his head was cut off, and then they chased them all away, right? And killed and plundered them elsewhere. But yeah, it's on the nose a little bit, isn't it? All right.
Yeah,
So
it makes
Goliath of
David
Gath.
and or Elhanan look way cooler if they defeat like a 9 or 10 foot giant
Yeah, it
guy
does.
than
Yeah.
like a 7-foot guy.
Yeah. So Goliath of Gath, he was 6 cubits and a span tall. Let's not forget the span. He
5
had a
and a half.
bronze helmet on his head and wore a breastplate of scale armor, a bronze breastplate weighing 5,000 shekels. He had bronze greaves on his legs.
I solved it. I solved it.
What did you solve?
So hang on. I'm just, and you have to
Okay.
understand I'm being tongue in cheek here. David launches the stone. It
Oh, God, we're
dents
still
the
with this.
helmet to the point where it sinks into his skull and it knocks him out. He's unconscious. He's possibly brain bleeding, and he finishes him off with the sword. You're welcome, evangelicals.
Thank you.
This is very tongue in cheek.
That's very good. Thank you, Vic.
Because if he's wearing a helmet, come on now.
It's true. Okay.
Come on.
Yes. Had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a breastplate of scale armor, a bronze breastplate weighing 5,000 shekels. He had bronze greaves on his legs and a bronze javelin slung from his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the iron head of his spear weighed 600 shekels, and the shield bearer marched in front of him. So this is the guy. This is Goliath of Gath, who has a spear like a weaver's beam. There is no mistake here that this is who we're talking about in both versions. In the version of Elchanan and in the version of David, it's the same guy. So the question is, who killed him? Did Elchanan kill him, or did David?
Jesse Meyer, there's a very simple explanation for this apparent contradiction. Goliath was killed by Elchanan, but resurrected. Hence he got the armor. David killed him again and cut off his head. You gotta be sure this time.
This works too, because we also know that the probability of resurrection is 1 in a million. So
Yeah, that's true.
probably
There's a
it
lot of
probably hadn't
resurrections.
happened for a few months or a number of
Yeah.
years.
People are thinking,
So
"Oh
it was
man, we're
yeah.
gonna have to cut off this guy's head."
He's the one.
Ugh.
I have, one
I
in a
mean,
million, but it does
you had
happen.
all of those 1 in a million resurrections were focused entirely on Jerusalem. Like, you had all those people coming up out of their graves. People thought, "Oh my god, we don't have enough swords for this. We're gonna have to go around cutting off our relatives and our friends and our neighbors' heads. Oh snap. This again."
There we go. So, this is the same giant. Now we are going to get into how first of all, there Sean and Dr. Hernandez are going to talk a little bit about the problem, this other version in 2 Samuel chapter 21. Okay, so we'll bring the video back.
Okay.
And we'll talk
And
about
I
that
also,
for a
because
little bit.
somebody, I think Katie Lewis, was discussing what a weaver's beam is. It's the top bar. So I will at least try to pull a picture of that up really quick, and then I'll just share the tab.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, open that in this tab and share it. Hopefully
The
everyone can
top
see that.
bar. Okay.
Yeah, top bar. It's a hefty piece of wood. So just saying.
Now I know
That's what
there. I mean, most will tell you that this is a size comparison. I have seen some commentators say that what's really going on is a comparison to the quality. It's weaver's beam kind of wood. That's the kind of wood that it was. So, but honestly, I think that it makes to my eye and ear, and with everything else that we see within these traditions, it just makes the best sense that this is just a gigantic goddamn spear. That's what it is. It's just this huge, huge spear.
Hainfashi is clarifying. In the period of David and Goliath, the warp-weighted loom was typically used to make woven materials. The weaver's beam was strong. Long round wood pole used the top of the loom to hold the warp or the vertical threads. There's the warp in the weave. The warp threads were kept taut by weights that are tied to the bottom. The weaver's beam kept the warp threads separated and could be turned to roll up.
Nice.
Yeah, and then
thank you.
You have a little mechanism that flips them, so you can throw the shuttle through and all that stuff.
I'll say one other thing about the story, the description of the armor of the Philistine of Goliath, and the description of the action taking place. This idea of him, standing forward as as a champion for the army to fight against an individual from another army. So, scholars have pointed out that this is actually a very Hellenistic idea in terms of how warfare is fought. So lots have said that this whole story is something that is probably pretty late in terms of how it is narrated. This sounds very much like a Hellenistic battle scene. So,
Kit, do you not understand that maybe the Gathites or maybe even the Rephaim or Anakim were time travelers?
They could have been.
And that's
Mind
why they're
you,
wearing Hellenistic armor?
yeah, somebody
Fighting in a
else might
Hellenistic
point out that they're, the Philistines were descended from the Mycenaeans and the people of the Aegean, right? So I don't know. I mean, there's a variety of ways to go around this, but
I suppose that's more plausible than
questions.
time travel.
Lots of maybe, but we'll leave it open. So, but lots of questions. All right, so let's hear what these guys have to say.
This particular verse is a good starting point to talk about several major issues that we need to confront as people who love the Bible, right? First of all, many of us look at this and think theologically, oh my gosh, like what is this verse saying about God's word theologically if it's like a contradiction? It looks like there's something else going on here, right? So that's where we start. But then there are other ways that we can work through this, not by simple not by simply pop apologetics saying, oh, this is what's happening, or that's what's happening. We're
Okay.
not that way, but actually by analyzing and going through what we call lower criticism or textual criticism. Now, since we have different biblical books written by different people in different periods of time, and then they were copied, sometimes we actually come across an issue like this, where we're like, hold up a second. That doesn't seem to sound like what I read maybe earlier. So is there a text critical issue here? That is there an issue with the wording in the text, in this case, the Hebrew, maybe some of the Greek, or maybe some of the other versions, that might help us work through what a scribe received and just copied? And in this case, yeah, I think that's the way to go.
That's okay. So holding on a second. Now, I want to. He spends a fair bit of time talking about textual criticism there. We'll just pause for a minute, but spends a lot of time talking about textual criticism there and comparing, and he calls it lower criticism. We used to distinguish between, much less so nowadays, but for a long time we used to distinguish between lower criticism and the higher criticisms. The lower criticism was textual criticism. This was just your evaluation of manuscripts and versions. So versions are survive in the form of translations, the Greek, the Latin, the Syriac. So that's the lower criticism. The higher criticism are the things like source criticism, tradition criticism, rhetorical criticism, genre criticism, tradition criticism. These are a deeper level of just examining the material that we have closely and exploring and postulating things that are taking place within the text, for which we may or may not have manuscript attestation, but which we can adduce from other features of the text, which suggest a history behind them, of their development. Now, one of the things that you do discover is, and I think it's a bit of a feature, not a bug, is among evangelical scholars, you will find quite a high number of textual critics. And the reason for that is because it's pretty safe.
I was going to
the
say, which of these
manuscripts.
is less threatening to your theology?
Yeah. Because if you are just examining your sources, like if you're just examining the manuscript copies you have and the versions that survive, I mean, you're only extending your exploration back what? To 200, 300 BCE at best, because we don't have anything prior to that. That's basically the starting point of any sort of critical examination there. And if all you're doing is saying, I'm giving the text the benefit of the doubt beyond, the versional and the manuscript evidence, then
Okay, I was going to say, my brain for a second was like, but wait, are you counting the Ketophenum scrolls? And then I was like, well, no manuscripts.
I mean, what's there? Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it's like a few sentences.
You've got 8 words.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
Gonna get much out of that.
You've got 8 words. So there's not much, it's, yeah, exactly. So this is by design. There is I graduated from the University of Manchester in 2009. Yes, 2009. I graduated with my PhD from the University of Manchester. My dissertation supervisor was Professor George J. Brooke, who was the holder of the Rylands Chair of Biblical Criticism and Exegesis. The gentleman who held that chair before him was F.F. Bruce, who was a renowned text critic and a renowned evangelical. And one of the things that you discover is a high number of evangelical Old Testament scholars who graduated from the University of Manchester in the 70s and the 80s. The reason for that was because they went to go study text criticism with F.F. Bruce. You find fewer and fewer evangelical scholars coming through and out of the PhD program in the University of Manchester after F.F. Bruce retired and after George Brooke was installed as the next holder of the Rylands chair.
That.
So that's, yeah. So, and it sounds to me like Dominic Hernandez has a pretty strong background in textual criticism. There's another one that we've seen. Wes Huff's friend, John Mead, another evangelical scholar who has a very strong background in textual criticism, and very often they set these things against each other. Textual criticism versus the higher criticisms, all that other stuff. I would never do that, right? I mean, they're all tools we have at our disposal, and they do different things. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. They're just different, and we need all of them. So let's
we actually got a super chat. If I can work out.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, a few. Tad is mad for 2. I would prefer Keith Hernandez. Mets talk. Sean. Not into baseball.
I only know Keith Hernandez because I used to watch Seinfeld. So
okay, cool. All right, Higgish for 10. Some Greek and Roman sling missiles had messages on them. Gotcha or ouch was one that I found one that said I see.
That's awesome.
Good. Any evidence this custom was also practiced by ancient Hebrews? I mean,
no.
That's also like anybody who
cool.
studies history at all will tell you that our sense of humor doesn't really change.
Doesn't change.
Era to era. We still have the same. We have the same
that
sense
is
of
very
humor.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very cool. Also, David and Goliath was in central Mexico, actually. That's why it's so impressive about David going back and forth to Bethlehem. The Mormons were right. David was going back and forth. Okay.
It's a very, very long journey.
Yes. Goliath is a spearman in 2 Samuel. While he's got a sword in 1 Samuel, maybe he had a ton of weapons, like early 2000s first-person shooter characters. Yeah, he just has like a really big inventory, like Doom guy. So
that's right.
Okay. Yeah, Claude Simeon for 5. I stand with Bish. Time travel and resurrection definitely proven in the Hebrew Bible. Now I want a Warlord David Vampire Hunter movie. Yes.
And by Bayesian reasoning, right? Not just
by Bayesian reasoning.
By Bayesian reasoning as well. Let's not forget that on the resurrection front. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, let's continue with the video.
Okay.
The tension is between 1 Samuel 17, Goliath is killed by David, and then we have another book, 2 Samuel 21, which is years later, David is now king, and the story is told that it's Elhanan who strikes down Goliath, and it says the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So this isn't somebody else named Goliath.
Yeah.
So in the biblical text, there at least appears to be a tension, appears to be a contradiction. How do we make sense of this?
Yeah.
Now, before going further, there's one other verse that just adds to the complexity of this.
Pause it for a second. I just want to say something quickly. The other thing I think they're doing, and they'll sort of pick up on this as we go through, but the other thing I think these two guys are doing, you heard that what they said, 2 different books? No. 1 and 2 Samuel it's all Samuel, right? This is this is
one text.
They were big. Samuel would have been a massive work at the time when they were divided, and they were divided for this reason. You can't fit all of Samuel on a single scroll. It would require 2. So they had to split them up. And the other thing too is this very I would say when approaching these texts, this naive acceptance that because First Samuel 17 is the first story, the one that appears earliest in the narrative. That's
Written first.
the original one,
Yeah.
right? And then we've got this later one that mentions Elchanan. It almost feels like they don't outright come and say that, but it sort of feels like they're prejudicing this discussion in that direction. You're primed to think about First Samuel 17 as the old version, or the first version, or the earliest version. All right.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah, and this is exactly where we were going with that, is that, according to
yes,
this logic, Genesis was written first, and we know it definitely wasn't. But also, like,
definitely
you can
not.
hear them being so uncomfortable with any potential conflict. They're like, well, there appears to be. There
Appears
to be. Because
Yeah. How
he's
do we
just like,
fix this?
please give me an out. Please give me an out. Explain
Yeah.
to me how I can harmonize
Yes.
this. They can't conflict. It's not possible. This
Yeah.
is one of those things that we talk about with your interaction with the text. Just let it say what it says. Just
Yeah.
let it do that. Don't be toxic
So
about it. Don't force it to not conflict with itself. Just let it do what it's doing. Work out your emotions separately, because these are separate things, and don't fall into the trap of, well, they can't conflict. It's not possible. So come on, just chill. It's fine.
there is an inherent tension within
Yeah.
the Hebrew Bible texts. So now they're going to introduce another. Now, I think this actually helps us a lot. They're going to talk about the version. Interestingly enough, we have these two versions of the history of the kings of Israel in what's called the Deuteronomistic history in Samuel and Kings, and then also in the books of Chronicles, which were written much later during the Persian period, right? So interestingly enough, in Chronicles there is no retelling of the story of David and Goliath, but there is a retelling of this story of Elchanan, and this actually helps us quite a bit to understand what's going on between these other two, between 2 Samuel chapter 21 and 1 Samuel chapter 17, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But now they're going to introduce First Chronicles.
Okay.
5 says, and there was again war with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Jair, struck down Lachmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam.
Right.
So now it seems like we have 3 accounts of what happens here. So before we jump in, like, where are we at looking at this issue, the complexity of it?
Yep.
All right.
They're so close. They're right there.
Let's look. They are right there.
Got them on the hook. Let's land them.
So there's 2 Samuel chapter 21, right? The account of Elchanan ben Yareh Orgim Bait Halachmi, son of Yareh Orgim, the Bethlehemite, who killed Goliath. And here is the version in First Chronicles 20, which Sean read. Then the war once again broke out with the Philistines in Gob, and Elchanan, son of Yaor, killed Lachmi, brother of Goliath the Gathite, and the wood of his spear was like a weaver's beam. Now, I have taken some liberties with this translation to point out some things. I want to make very clear here that there is absolutely no question at all that First Chronicles 20 is reading 2 Samuel 21. The story comes from 2 Samuel 21, and he is making changes to it. Okay, this is what this looks like. First of all, we have this repetition of Orgim. Vish loves this pun. The chronicler did not. He did not like this. He thinks that this is a scribal error. So what he does is he takes out what he believes is the error. He thinks that the error occurs with the name of the
name.
father of Elkanah. So he calls him Elkanah ben Yaur. Elkanah,
Instead of
the son
Yade.
of Yaur, right? Or Yaor, or whatever you want to say.
Yade.
So he's just eliminated the Orgim from that, right? Then here's what we have. These are I've highlighted in green everything where there is a change between the two texts. Everything that's white there is word for word exactly the same. Yeah, you heard
Word
me.
for word.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, wow. Everything that's green, these are where the chronicler has made changes. So what sorts of changes has he made to the text? First of all, he has, you'll notice that he has changed this. This is not the war, hamilchama.
War.
It's just war. Then war once again broke out with the Philistines, not in Gob. He's taken that out too. Okay. Something else to point out here, he's used a different preposition. Hebrew readers, pay attention. In the Samuel text, it's war in Gob im Philistine, with the Philistines. In First
Mhm.
Chronicles 20, it's just milchama et
It.
Philistine.
Philistine. Whoa.
Different preposition means the same thing. It's just a
Okay.
different way of saying with the Philistines. All right. Now, here's where things get very interesting. Yes, I point this out. You can see it in the green highlight of the translation. Elkanah was the son of Yaur. He's just removed the Yare or Gim. He's taken that Orgim out and has a different spelling of the name of Elkanah's
Yade.
father.
This-
All right. And now this is where it gets kind of wild. Elkanah, son of Yaur, killed Lachmi, the brother of Goliath, the Gathite. He didn't kill Goliath, the Gathite. He killed Lachmi, the brother of Goliath, the Gathite.
Alachmi.
And Beit Halachmi. Vish picked up on this. So it is in the green text. In 2 Samuel 21, this is Beit Lachmi et Goliath Hagiti. In 1 Chronicles 20, this is Et Lachmi, not Beit Lachmi, Achi Goliath Hagiti.
Achi. Yeah.
So he's done a couple things here. He has changed in Hebrew. It's so cool that some of these things happen. I'm just pausing to point out. It's so cool when some of these things happen in stuff that I'm preparing, and it happens by accident, I swear. That corresponds to lessons that I just gave to my Hebrew class this week. So just this last week, on Tuesday evening, we were talking about the untranslated definite direct object marker. And that's what's happening here. In Hebrew, when you're marking the object in a sentence, the way we do this in English is that the object of a sentence occurs in the word order. It occurs after the verb. You've got subject of the verb, then the verb itself, then the object. In Hebrew, it's different. You've got the verb first, then the subject, and then the direct object follows the subject and is very often, most often, actually marked with a word that we don't translate. That word is et. And the word et, all it's doing is saying, hello, this is the object of the
Direct
sentence.
object. This is what the verb is telling you is happening. It's happening to this.
Yes. So, and that's what we see in 2 Samuel 21, it says, Vayak Elchanan, Elchanan killed, struck, smote, killed, is the verb. And here's the description of Elchanan. Elchanan ben Yareh Orgim Beit Halachmi. Elchanan, son of Yareh Orgim of, the Bethlehemite, killed Et Goliath Hagiti. Et is the marker here of the object. The object is Goliath Hagiti. He killed Goliath, the Gittite. That's the 2 Samuel passage. In 1 Chronicles chapter 20, they've made some changes here. They have changed bait to 8.
8.
So 8 in place of bait. So now it reads, Vayak Elchanan ben Yaur, Elchanan, son of Yaur, killed or struck or smote, et Lachmi Achi Goliath Hagiti. Your definite article, the direct object marker there is marking Lachmi as a name, I guess, of and the other thing that the chronicler has done has changed the direct object marker in 2 Samuel 21 to another word, Achi, brother of Goliath Hagiti. Okay?
So you have Beit Halachmi, so Bethlehemite.
Yes.
But here you have Lachmi Achi, which is a tongue twister.
It kind of is.
Yeah, Beit to 8 or et technically, but yeah, it's interesting to me that you point these things out, and whoever is composing the 1 Chronicles 20 text is thinking, yeah, that weaver's beam, that's a duplicate. But I'm almost hearing maybe somebody sitting next to him telling him, oh, here's the next passage. And bait can sound like et or 8, and maybe the person stuttered. This is me just riffing. Don't take this seriously. Lachmi, bait, halachmi, but he goes, 8, lachmi, achi, and he maybe corrects himself. The guy writes it down as like, whatever. There's so many ways that you can talk about this that don't require ill intent, right? Or like twirling your mustache. Some of these could be honest.
It's possible. However, I'm going to, I think that there is a very, there's very intentional change here on the part of the chronicler. And we'll talk about it, right? I do not think there's anything accidental going on here. And we will talk about it, but that is not the direction that Sean and Dominic are going to go with this text. So I think what we have next.
No, Elchanan killed his brother, not Goliath. David killed Goliath. Elchanan just killed the brother. Yeah, see,
that's
contradiction.
He's just his brother, because that's what it says in 1 Chronicles. Even though 1 Chronicles was written quite a bit later. But let's listen to them. Yeah. Let's listen to how they go about explaining this.
Thank you, Kinetic. Yep. This is what I also think. Better propaganda just goes that hard.
Yeah, it does.
So there's a couple of different types of criticisms, as we were just talking about. Those that are more into what we call higher criticism would immediately look at these 3 sources or 3 verses and say, oh, there might be different sources for these 3 accounts.
Okay.
Now, we're not totally against there being sources in compiled books in the Bible. Obviously, Proverbs is compiled, Psalms is compiled. There are other sections of the Bible that we know are compiled. Not against that. There could be different hands in different books that don't have authors. Like, we don't know exactly who wrote Chronicles. We're not totally against that. But we do have a traditional text that was passed down to us. So we want to exhaust the options that we have in the traditional text that's been passed down to us to try to figure out what's going on here. And I think that we can
pause it for a second, because I want you to
go ahead.
I want you to hear what he's saying here, right? first of all, he says that higher critics are the ones who are suggesting that this is a source critical issue, that there are different sources at work here. Definitely not me. Okay. And among the, the commenters on this text that I have read, this is not the explanation that they offer. I would say this is, for my part, this isn't a source critical issue. It's really interesting to me that they are downplaying the value of source criticism in their explanation here, especially with what follows. All right. I just want everyone to keep in mind, what they're saying here. Sure, there could be sources in the Bible, but that, you know what? It doesn't have to be that. That's what they're saying, right?
Well, notice that they're completely fine with books that are just so transparently an assemblage of little nuggets and vignettes, like
That
Proverbs
too.
and Psalms.
Proverbs, Psalms.
So he's saying, like, oh yeah, because those are easy. No really
Yeah.
sane person would go, no, those were all written by one single author. Like, no, that's ridiculous. But he wouldn't be okay with the type of criticism that's like, hey, we're looking at multiple authors for like most of the Torah. We're looking at
Yep.
probably at least 2 or more authors for Isaiah. I don't think he's okay with that, because the books themselves
Mhm.
are intended to be read as like, continuous narrative. And he's just like, oh, no, those wouldn't be okay. But obviously Psalms, those are vignettes, those are poems and songs, and Proverbs, they're just
Mhm.
Proverbs, So they kind of are giving themselves away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jillian Rand got me. Have you considered? Nuh-uh. You're right, I didn't. I did not
We're
consider
going
nuh-uh.
to we will put it on the table, Jillian.
Sure.
Can do this by looking at what the text says and how it could have been maybe a little bit jumbled by the scribes of the Masoretic text, the particular Masoretic text that we have. It seems that the scribe confused a couple of words between the 2 Samuel account and the 1 Chronicles account. Now, what do I mean by that? It's reasonable to assume that Samuel is an earlier book. We don't know exactly who wrote Samuel, but much of Samuel is repeated, as we know, in 1 Chronicles. And so, so it's reasonable to assume that that Samuel was a prior book. We get to Chronicles and we're like, okay, there was probably a tradition, maybe even already a written tradition of Samuel by the chronicler, the person we don't know who wrote it, right? So the chronicler. Okay. So there was probably a written tradition. Now, by recognizing that there was probably a written tradition, we go back to the Hebrew and we see if there's a couple of things that could potentially be confused in the Hebrew orthography, so the way of writing. And the answer to that is there's a couple of things that may have been confused by the chronicler from the Samuel passage.
I know why you were... Aha! This is what I told you to save it for the stream. I know where you're going with this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Kipp and I were discussing some of these issues before the stream, and he was showing me some text that he was going to show you, and I was like, I don't know why you're telling me this. And now I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be going in a few slightly different directions, but so just he's summarizing this this situation and suggesting that before jumping to the conclusion that there's different sources at work for these texts, even though that is not an argument I am going to be making for the difference between how the chronicler tells the story and how the author of 2 Samuel tells this story. I think the source critical issues are the ones that we talked a little bit about earlier with regards to the construction of the book of Samuel, with regards to what's going on in the story of David and Goliath itself in 2 Samuel 17, right? That's where the source critical discussion is taking place. I think what's happening between 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles is something different, has nothing to do with sources, as he suggested. Okay. I will agree with him. Now, he's going to introduce this article, and I will bring it up here in a minute as well. But it is very interesting how the author of the article arrives at the conclusion for how to read this text. Let's continue with the video.
I don't want to shut down the idea that there may be different contributors some places in the Bible, but what I do want to, what I'm saying, what I'm admitting is that methodologically, I'm making a decision here, and I'm saying, let's see if the text that we have, let's see if we can reconcile internally with the text that we have, with the 3 texts that you made up, and that you brought up. Better stated, you didn't make them up. With the 3 texts that you brought up, and I think
From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes. Yes.
I think that there's a way of doing it. Now, I mentioned the word orthography. And what I'm really making reference to is how words were written down, right? So scribes obviously wrote with a hand, a quill, and they wrote, right? And sometimes those scribes confuse certain things. Scribes hardly ever made intentional emendations to text, but sometimes they made accidental changes to texts, and I think that might be what we're seeing here. And I think that's
important.
Now it's time to
That
bring up
makes
this
sense.
article.
Okay,
Right.
so tell me
All right,
what's
now
going on with this.
hold on. Before he brings up the article, you heard what he said there? Scribes
What?
almost never make intentional emendations to the
Survey says, literally, how many Greek texts of the New Testament do we have where there's an entire like paragraph at the bottom of the parchment or the manuscript that later on gets added into the main body of the
Did you steal
I'm
that
serious.
flag from Jubilee, Vish?
No, I've had this thing for
Oh,
a couple of years now.
I
got
don't
it
think
from
I don't think
a-
I've saved it.
I've used it on stream before.
Have you? I just never pay attention, I guess. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine that really loves just doofy little prop gifts and little stuff like that. He gave away a
Perfect.
bunch of little red flags. He made little Uno reverse cards, but when you look at the text, it doesn't say Uno, it says no you. So you Uno reverse no you. So yeah.
But so yeah, really important, right? Like, where on earth is he getting this idea that scribes hardly ever make intentional emendations to texts? And forget the New Testament. If you have ever read the Samaritan Pentateuch or the Septuagint or the Masoretic text and looked at all the obvious intentional changes that were made by the people behind those versions, if you've ever read the reworked Pentateuch from the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you've ever sat down and compared the various laws between the covenant code and the holiness code and the code in the book of Deuteronomy. I mean, seriously.
Or the bit in Jeremiah
lying
about
pen
that
of
talks about the
scribes.
lying pen of the scribes.
Which lies? It's not just the lying pen of scribes. It's the lying pen of scribes that lies. It is. I'm going to say it's irresponsible to just come right out and say this because it's not true. It's not true. It is not true. What is happening, I think, and this happens a lot among particularly conservative Christian evangelical commenters on the Bible, is they will retroject from a much, much later period in time. They will look at the copying principles of the Masoretes, who were creating texts in the Middle Ages, like between like the 6th century AD and I don't know, like the 12th or 13th. I don't know how far we go when we talk about Masoretic tradition, but like these are all super fucking late. Okay. They love to retroject these principles that were employed by the Masoretes back on this earlier period, you know, into Second Temple Judaism, which you can't do, because what happens is when you look and you take a serious consideration of the scribal practices that we observe. Nobody actually sat down and wrote them out like the Masoretes did, happily for us. The Masoretes did this. They said, these are the rules for copying texts, for copying manuscripts. Nobody did that in the Second Temple period. So we don't have that. All we have are the manuscripts themselves. We look at those and we can see all the places where scribes made intentional changes. So you can't even extend this as far back as to the Second Temple period, to say nothing of the period of development before that. This is a fiction.
Yeah, what does he think caricative is? Exactly. Oh, yeah, Simone just said it too.
Yeah.
What does he even think caricative is?
Emendation.
Those are literally emendations in the text. For the audience,
these are not
carre
accidental changes.
What you
is
say,
read?
cative is
Yes.
what is written.
What is written?
So it's their way. They'll put little notes in the margins and stuff like that of, if you see this written on the scroll, say this thing instead. So you'll
Yeah.
a lot of times in digital prints, it's hard to get that kind of like going. So you'll see stuff in parentheses with no vowels, whereas like the rest of it will have vowels, and they're trying to integrate that into the main body, so you kind of see what's going on. Intimidation now.
So this is just nonsense. But I think the other what the implication here, I think, is that the chronicler has made accidental changes to the text. And certainly that's something that needs to be entertained. He's going to make a case for that. But
so
it is a bit of a muddled case.
Really quick, just because I saw it and I remember that we had one. Isn't this mostly read, for the Tetragrammaton? That's common.
Those are not, yeah.
But this is an example of what I was talking about. Like, here you see two spellings of a word. One has vowels, the eights, and this other one is like hoots, maybe.
Bahoots, probably, yeah.
But yeah, it's like, hey, so if you, for instance, are reading on Sepharia and you see stuff like this, that's trying to incorporate a textual emendation into the body there. So I had just seen it, so I was like, oh, I just flipped back to the tab.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. All right. So yes. Let's hear him talk about this, talk about what's happening. He's going to introduce this article now. And there's one thing in the article that I want to look at.
Okay.
Good article by Kaspers Ozolins, and who's a professor at Southern Seminary, where you did your degree. Yes, exactly. Okay. We can look at a couple of words in the Chronicles text.
Oh, wait, no, gotta stop. We should not refer people to Nehemiah Gordon so they can learn about creative. I know that. Please be kidding. Please be kidding. Because he... Literally, Nehemiah Gordon's the guy that's like, see, the Masoretic vowel pointing is on all these other manuscripts. Therefore, the way that ancients pronounced God's name was Jehovah. And he writes entire books and treatises and does live streams and talks on this. And I'm like, guy, no. No. It's so bad. Please don't learn. Don't. Okay.
And say, oh, that was written later, and that may have been confused from the Samuel text, right? I teach a course called Critical Issues in the Study of the Old Testament, where the whole course is dedicated to issues like this. So we talk about the Pentateuch, composition of the Pentateuch, composition of Isaiah, composition of Daniel, composition of Zechariah. We work through these issues. And one of the things that I say at the beginning of that class,
about all those.
And it's cross-listed as an apologetics class.
Earlier, Vish.
One of the things that I say at the beginning of that class.
The critical issues in the composition and development of the Old Testament, all of those, composition of the Pentateuch, composition of book of Isaiah, book of Daniel, book of Zechariah, those are all higher critical explorations of the text, right? So this sounds like a course on how to avoid performing any actual higher criticism on the biblical text. Yeah.
Yes, I want you to hear me out here. I don't want you to get mad at me. Is that this is not a course in pop apologetics.
Okay.
We're not just going to say the right thing and forget about the issue. Sometimes these issues, we got put in the hard work to work through some of these issues, right? Let me just read the NIV's rendering of this. This is 2 Samuel 21:19.
Hold on. This is interesting, though.
In another battle with the Philistines.
This is how the NIV has translated. Importantly, this is 2 Samuel chapter 21 that he's reading. This is the NIV's translation of the 2 Samuel passage. Remember the 2 Samuel passage where Elchanan, son of Yareh Ordgim, the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gathite. This is how the NIV translates that text.
Yeah, see, David Sinclair and I think are laughing at the exact same thing.
But
Let's
this
do the
is,
hard work. Let's read the NIV, which is one of the
to
most
be
garbage
fair, to be fair, he is listen. You got to hear him out here because
Okay.
he understands this. Okay,
All right, let him cook.
At Gob, Elhanan, son of Yair. Now it takes out the Orgim part here. The Hebrew text has Orgim, so it has Yair Orgim. The NIV takes that out. And then it says, the Bethlehemite killed the brother of, and now it adds the brother of Goliath the Gittite, who had a spear with a shaft like a weaver's rod. So the reason why I bring up the pop apologetics thing here is because what the NIV has done here, and by the way, I really like the NIV. I read it all the time. But what it's done is it's tried to reconcile the issues for us. There is already a version that does the pop apologetics for us. It tries to reconcile it for us.
The actual text in Hebrew did it first.
well, you hear what he's saying though, right? What the NIV has done is they've looked at the passage in 1 Chronicles and they have changed the translation in 2 Samuel to align with the passage in 1 Chronicles. So yeah,
Literally forcing something on the text that was not there.
Yeah. To his credit, please. Dominic Hernandez is going that, that's not the best. That's not the right thing to do here. He's not a fan of that. Okay.
Okay.
To his credit.
Like I said, I'm gonna let him cook. I'm just
good.
I just want to scream when someone's like, let's go to the NIV. It's just Pavlovian at this point.
I know, man. Yeah.
So the issue here ends up being there ends up being an issue Ogim. Now Ogim means weavers. So this shows up at the end of the verse, the weaver's rod. And so it's likely that the second mentioning of Ogim is a copying mistake. That is, it seems that it was copied twice and it should have only been there once at the end of the verse. That makes total sense to people that study textual criticism. Why is weaver showing up next to this?
So
you sure about that?
It is. I will say though. Now again, I think I'm just going to put this back up on the screen, to show everyone, right? Shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Sure. Screen. Thank you. Rats. I'm so good at this.
Jason is complimenting Hernandez's pronunciation of Ogim.
No, not that one. Rats. Where did it go?
By the way, while you're doing that, Fibonacci 8 writes your own personal exegesis.
There it is. Okay. I'm just going to put this back up here.
Right.
Okay. And the reason why, okay. Now, I absolutely, you pointed this out that within 2 Samuel 21, there's a pun here. There's wordplay. He's the son of Yareh Ordgim, and he killed Goliath the Gathite, whose spear was like an Ordgim, right? The chronicler seems to think that this is a scribal error. The chronicler seems to think that, right? Because he took that out of the I think this works from the chronicler's perspective. I don't think he had any other. I can't see why he would remove that, except for thinking this was was repeated by accident. This doesn't work. Okay. So it certainly looks like the chronicler thinks that this was a scribal error.
And I
All right.
feel like that's so unfortunate because
It
having a
is.
guy
Yes.
who's the son of like people who weave or do these things, besting a guy who has a spear that's like a weaver's beam. It's like, dude,
Right? Yeah.
literary.
Yeah,
Just,
absolutely. Absolutely.
they incorrected it, in my opinion.
They incorrected it. All right.
Mhm.
Let's
Okay.
hear some more.
Name. That doesn't seem to make sense. It may have been accidentally copied twice. Now, let's
Okay.
talk about the Bethlehemite here.
Yes.
also
Let's
an
talk
issue,
about the Bethlehem.
Because one of the versions say, that is the First Chronicles 20, verse 5, says that Elhanan killed the son of Yair killed Lachmi. That's what it's killed a person named Lachmi, or that as Elhanan killed a person named Lachmi. Here's the issue. The Bethlehemite in Hebrew is Bet Lachmi. The Bethlehemite, Bet Lachmi, or Bet Halachmi is better stated, right? So in Hebrew has a direct object indicator that's not translatable. Whenever you see the word et in Hebrew, the next word is the direct object. So here we have in the Samuel passage, 2 Samuel 21 verse 19, that Elhanan killed the Bet Lachmi. He struck down Goliath. But in the First Chronicle version, we have he struck down Et Lachmi, which sounds a lot like Bet Lachmi. Textually, if you were to put these texts next to each other in Hebrew, you would see, and you were to read them out loud, you were to see, oh, Et Lachmi, Bet Lachmi. They sound similar. Maybe the Chronicle scribe thought Lachmi was a person and put Et, which sounds very much like Bet, and actually shares one consonant with Bet. Maybe that person was Et Lachmi, that is Et, and then the name Lachmi instead of Bet Lachmi, which actually says that Elkanah was from Bethlehem.
Yep.
Early on,
which we already discussed.
We did, but now I want to. I want to bring up this article. He mentioned this article because this is where he's drawing his explanation for this passage from. This is the article by where is it? It's Who Really, there it is. Oh, so okay. So it's this one. Who Really Killed Goliath by Kaspar's I think it's Ozelinch. It's probably
too
not
small for me to read it clearly.
Oh, is it?
Make it full
Okay.
screen.
I can zoom in.
No, that's just me because I have it on my screen that's really tiny.
Okay.
Okay.
So knowledge of scribal mistakes may provide a better solution to the historical puzzle of who killed Goliath in 2 Samuel 21:19. And I'm just going to go straight to his explanation here. All right. So he wants to see, and this is effectively what I think Dominic is echoing, although he doesn't come out and say this clearly enough. So part of me is a little confused. Here we have what the author of the article, Ozelinch, thinks is the original text. And Elchanan, the son of Jaur, the Bethlehemite, struck down the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. That's what he thinks is probably an original source text behind the differences between the First Chronicles passage and the Second Samuel passage. Step 1, an extra Oregim appears after Yair in 2 Samuel. And Elchanan, son of Yare Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like an Oregim, a weaver's beam. Okay. Step 2, brother of is misread in 2 Samuel, and Bethlehemite is misread in 1 Chronicles. So, in 2 Samuel, Elchanan son of Yareh Orgim the Bethlehemite struck down Goliath the Gittite, misreading Achi, brother of, for the definite article 8. Okay, so that change was made in 2 Samuel 21:19, but then the author of First Chronicles makes another mistake by misreading Bethlehemite and thinks that this is a name. This is actually the name of the brother of Goliath. And Elchanan, son of Jaud, struck down Lachmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So it's interesting to me because do you remember how much they're like, well, before we start jumping to there being sources behind the explanation here, what do we have? We have the invention of an early source in an attempt to explain what's happening between 2 Samuel 21 and 1 Chronicles chapter 20. And I got to tell you, no, I don't think so at all. Okay. I'm going to put up my slides again. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just bringing my slides up.
Even more. So these folks are arguing that there's 2 errors in 2 separate texts, like First Samuel versus Chronicle or whatever, Second Samuel, that there's 2 errors that are being swapped in and out. And we're saying, no, that's actually not what's happening.
Nope.
There is conflicting narratives that were stitched together. Some of them were meshed in a little bit. Later redactors came along and were like, I don't like the fact that these are conflicting. I'm just going to try to massage this a little bit and make sure that it's easier to read and that it doesn't contradict. And then it's not because it's like, ha 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 ha, this is for evil, nefarious intent. It's just like, oh, well, this is weird. But why are these conflicting? They shouldn't conflict. So, yeah, these guys are making a case for something that's just not supported.
Definitely not. So, here is basically this is the way that they want to explain this. Sorry. No, this is my explanation. So, I think what's actually happening is the chronicler is harmonizing the Deuteronomist, right? He's looking at 2 Samuel 21 and going, wait a minute. It says that Elchanan killed Goliath, but I mean, I know, even though the chronicler doesn't tell the story of David and Goliath, which is really interesting. Even though he doesn't tell that story, he knows it. And we know that he knows it because of the way that he's changed the text. He's trying to harmonize this with 1 Samuel 17. He corrects what he thinks is the tautography, right, which is the repetition of orgim. So he's taken that out. He anonymizes the location. This is important. This was missed by the article. These guys don't talk about this. Why not? Look at this.
It's a pretty glaring omission.
In 2 Samuel 21, war broke out with the Philistines in Gob.
Yeah.
And Elchanan, son of Yareh, Orgim the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gittite. Okay? He took it out. It's missing. Why did he do that?
If they're separate battles, then that's another way to keep them from conflicting. Yeah.
What does it say in 1 Samuel 17, verses 1 to 2? Just read it. You don't even have to put it on the screen. Just read it.
I'm scrolling up.
Okay,
the
sorry.
Philistines assembled at Succoth of Judah and encamped at Ephes Damim. Totally different place. And The Valley of Elah is where the Israel
None of those places is Gove.
None of those places
None of
is
them.
Gove. Not one.
The chronicler has to correct this because he knows that in 1 Samuel 17, the battle takes place in a different place. Okay? That's why. And then he introduces a new character, Lachmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, by just rewriting Bethlehemite. And they have, introduced this possibly as an oral mistake, something that,
that's
a
where I was going with
copyist
that.
heard,
Yeah.
right? Because Eight Lachmi
Beit
potentially
Lachmi.
sounds like Beit Lachmi. Maybe.
Because look, one of the first things in spoken language that shifts and changes is vowels. Vowels, left, right, and center. People are very just meh about vowels. And it's not like, again, they're
Sure.
not trying to be evil about it. Like, here's an example that happens all the time. Anglophones are extremely fond of interchanging the with the vowels. So instead of getting Semitic, they go Semitic. Because there's like this way of spreading out your vowels. And when you want to say the word, it comes out Semitic rather than Semitic.
True.
Most people don't hear that because they know what you're trying to say. Right. And that was another example.
Right.
Say versus say. These are things like my ear hears them because I've had some of this training in like my music career and like voice work. So when I hear that stuff, I'm like, it feels like a record scratch. Most people never notice. It doesn't really affect the message they're trying to get across. But yeah, I try to bring in at least some oral nuance to these things.
I think it's possible. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's the entire thing can rest on the explanation that what we're dealing with here is a scribe who's literally copying this part of his text word for word and then making changes to it.
Wow.
Making changes
word for word.
Wow. Yeah. So he is copying this text verbatim out of Samuel and making changes to it as he goes because he doesn't want it to conflict with the story of David and Goliath in 2 Samuel chapter 17. And he arrives at these solutions. Corrects the tautography, which, probably wasn't necessary because it may not be tautography. He removes, just completely anonymizes this place because he knows it didn't happen in Gove. And then he's like, well, yeah. So it wasn't actually Goliath. It was this other guy, Lachmi, brother of Goliath.
For people in the 200 or 300 level phase of these kinds of streams and textual criticism things, this is part of a larger trend that you see as time goes on in Israelite history to put distance between the readers/writers, the people, and uncomfortable prior tellings of a thing. Like you see this in the earlier telling that, El Elyon divvied out the nations according to the B'nai Elohim. That was the original telling of that particular passage. And the later authors were like, oh, no, we can't have that. And they changed Elohim to B'nai Israel, right? And that's more theologically comfortable. The same thing with a lot of times people in earlier patriarchal narratives would be talking directly to God. And in slightly later adjustments, they're, no, it was an angel of God. It wasn't actually God talking to him. It's just an angel. And it's because they're uncomfortable with direct human to divine interaction. You have in between there. So this is part of a trend. It's like, hey, Gove is a very specific location. Elhanan is a very specific person killing Goliath. If
It was
you're
also
like,
very
well,
specifically identified. Yes.
right, who's very specifically identified. And then if the later person comes along and goes, hang on, well, what if I don't set it in Gove? It's, somewhere else. Because I know that, like, Sukkot's, in Judah, and that's not Gove. So let me just tweak. And then, it wasn't Goliath. It was his brother. Elhanan killed his brother. Yep. So, like, we don't have a conflict between David and Elhanan, or Gove and Sukkot, or FS Damim, whatever. It's fine.
It's a harmonization. It's a way of ensuring that your account is aligning with your earlier source, and importantly, it's feeding into the propaganda here, right, of David, which is very important for the chronicler. Famously, something that the chronicler does is scrubs the reputation of David, and just wants to project this really squeaky clean depiction of him. So David's not adultering or graping or killing or like all of these things.
Another thing, you'll see a really hyper exaggerated version of this if you ever read through Jubilees, because at least in the Tanakh you get some moral gray with like patriarchal figures and stuff like that. In Jubilees, they are only perfectly good, morally upstanding all the time, or they're the worst evil that has ever come about ever, right? There is no gray area between those two. And it's jarring to read that, and how they massage some of the narratives and like tweak some of the ways that they tell stories to make it come out that way. It's like, well, this wasn't so-and-so's idea. It was actually so-and-so who were fine with them being not great character, but not our guy. He's 100% good, like morally upstanding. So again, this is like part of a trend that you see developing. And I think that's
exactly. It is neat. All right. Now I think I'll just show this. So this is their explanation. This is the explanation of the article, right? That the chronicler is actually correcting the Deuteronomist, the story in 1 Samuel, because there was another source behind both of them. So he corrects the topography. Again, chronicler clearly thinks that Ordegim is repeated and should be removed. He anonymizes the location because it's it didn't happen in Gove, and then somehow also preserves the name of the opponent once corrupted to Bel-Hamite. So he preserves this. He preserves the idea that this was actually the brother of Goliath. That survives in the chronicler. I think it's a poor explanation, especially since at this point there is no reason to anonymize the location. You don't have to do that if you're dealing with another figure. So to my eye and ear, I'm like, this is sensitive. They feel compelled to do this. This is why a big part of why I reject this. But then, as we will get into, we'll listen to them talk a little bit more about what's going on here. But then I will show you what I think is happening between 1 Samuel 17, 2 Samuel 21, and Chronicles chapter 20. And it's much more involved than just, corrections and harmonizations. Okay? All right.
You're saying I'm open to different sources being behind the different writings and different traditions, but maybe there's another way to address this, which is a more evangelical Christian and maybe historically Christian way of approaching this, probably apart from the higher criticism.
Just a reminder that evangelicalism is extremely modern. So
and
saying
also,
evangelical or historically Christian, those are not,
Also, for all their efforts to avoid sources, they basically invent a source. behind both texts. Like I just I don't know how they don't see this, right?
Well,
That
someone else in the chat earlier was mentioning like young Earth creationists, how they can't actually produce viable models or predictions. They can only ever accommodate evidence and accommodate things. They can't ever like come up with novel explanations. Everything's ad hoc. And I think that that's a good way to look at this, because when you start out with the premise, this can't conflict, then your harmonizations and your explanations are going to start getting ad hoc. But once you solve, I guess, one problem, you end up creating 2 or 3 more because of that. And that's the same thing that happens with like young Earth creationism, is like, oh, well, the plate tectonics and the plates broke up during the flood and blah, blah, blah. Everything moved around from Pangea. And they're like, oh, well, the problem is that generates enough heat to turn the Earth into a star. So, I don't think you want to do that.
Yeah, like this is just a simple employment of Occam's razor here. I don't have to invent any additional sources. I can just look at First Chronicles and go, they're just reading Second Samuel, right? Like they're just reading the Deuteronomistic history. That's all they're doing. That's what they've got. All right.
Okay.
How much do we have left on
Chris's
the
might
video?
come back.
We're 12 out of 17.
About 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So we'll just
we'll
play it through to we'll play it through to the end, and then I'll show what I've got here for my explanation.
Dr. Dominic Hernandez, Talbot School of Theology professor. You're also bringing your own biases and assuming that there's a way to reconcile this, and it's the Word of God and it's inerrant. What would you say to somebody who would push back and saying you're making the same mistake, but in the opposite way?
I would say it's not a mistake, and I'm totally admitting it. See, that's the issue, right? That's one of the things that makes us. That's one of the things that makes us evangelical. We admit what we believe about the Bible when we study it. What we presuppose or suppose about the Bible, then we can argue about which suppositions are more reasonable. It's those that don't admit.
What if you didn't make presuppositions? What if you didn't? Like he's trying to say that, well, we're being upfront about our presuppositions, therefore that's much better and morally more like admirable than not mentioning and being upfront about your presuppositions.
To be fair,
I kind of know where he's going with that.
Yeah.
But the problem is he's not questioning what the presuppositions are, or if they're justified, or if they're supported. He's just saying, I mean, we just say what they are. That's assuming a lot of things also. So, no, the issue isn't not being upfront about it.
It is definitely not that. And yes, you just can't do anything unless you employ presuppositions at the outset. I mean, it depends on what those presuppositions are.
Yeah, and
right,
like Sean said it's inerrant. That's a presupposition.
That's a presupposition.
And again, like if you presuppose,
is that a reasonable presupposition?
No, it's not reasonable and it's not supported. But the thing is like there's another presupposition that we have, and it's a simple one. Human beings wrote the text down. They weren't supernaturally penned by like a floating like quill or whatever, right?
And they intentionally changed the fucking text. Like we can see it. You don't even have to go outside the Bible to see it. You can see them changing texts just within the stuff that's contained. Like yes.
And like I know this is where he was going with this. It's a presupposition claimed to be based on objective truth. Again, that's another presupposition. Presupposition that truth is objective or can be objective. So to them, of course, it's acceptable. Like that's reasonable to them. Which but that's not the root issue. Really, it's hey, are you imposing things? One might say almost eisegesis, the bad word. Evangelicals hate eisegesis. They're like, no, we never do that.
They do it all the time.
We do.
Yeah.
But we just call it, presuppositions that are fine. They're fine, actually.
Yeah.
What they believe, that then I think sometimes it's difficult to have conversations with those people. And that's not just higher critics.
And that could be evangelicals or higher critics or anybody else.
Not just higher critics, apparently. I'm not taking any offense to that at all.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah, the issue
on.
isn't whether you're being upfront about them
Really?
or not. That's not the issue here.
Really?
Not the issue at all.
I am more than happy to talk about my presuppositions. The difference is mine aren't weird. Okay?
Yeah, Simone is pretty on key here. I expect he's going to go on to say that critical scholars also have presuppositions, and they don't admit it, but that's also not true. Critical scholarship does have them. They're smaller, and we admit them.
Yes.
So again, it's
constantly
what the presuppositions are, not
Yes.
whether or not you're telling people that you have them. That's again, how many times I've been gonna have to say that, but
like
anyway.
the big one is that before I start entertaining explanations that venture into, God did it or said it or preserved it, I'm going to try and exhaust the natural explanations at my disposal for that. Feels like a responsible thing to do when, approaching the literature.
And that's another thing that is reasonable and supported, because we have zero evidence that things operate or can operate supernaturally. Zero evidence. None. Zip, zilch, nada. And for someone who, doesn't have that epistemology or whatever, they're like, no, I totally allow for the supernatural. And it's like, okay, well, based on what?
Vincent from Miami wants to know if we cuss a lot.
As many I do, some. But I try not to do that as much on these streams because I know a mixed audience will watch them later, and I don't want people to not learn some cool stuff about history and text just because I dropped an F-bomb or something. I'm not always consistent, but I make some effort.
Vish probably tries harder than I do, I'm afraid. I'm my apologies
and it's
for that.
I have experience teaching as well, and that's kind of, I had to develop that habit as well with kids. So it's like you have to really be conscious of how you're speaking so that people don't get turned off to the message. Anyway,
issues can be explained by way of what the author is doing or striving to do for the particular audience that the author is writing for. So, for example, the chronicler that came late, some scholars would say the chronicler is just trying to the chronicler is changing this text in order to make it more reasonable for the audience that the chronicler is writing to later. And sometimes, that's one way of looking at it. Obviously, we believe that God's word, as it was given, is an expression of God's self. And so we don't believe that there's going to be these mistakes and these errors, but we also believe in a very human side of transmission. And if we admit the human side, an issue like this is not nearly as much of an issue as an evangelist saying that Jesus potentially didn't rise.
Please pick a lane, evangelicals. Either the text reflects God and it's transmitting his perfect holy word across time and space, or, humans did a whoopsie. You really honestly
want to have both.
Have it both ways. You cannot.
They want to have both.
And that's the cope when they're faced with something that is just so obviously human intervention, error, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, that's a human did an oopsie. And at the exact same time, they're going, nope, the text is inerrant and God is transmitting their incorruptible, perfect, inerrant holy word throughout time and space. And it's like, well, then humans wouldn't be making the whoopsies. Like, there's all these verses about people didn't need, firsthand testimony. They didn't need to write all this stuff down because the Holy Spirit's going to tell you later. The Holy Spirit's going to remind you. Or people were writing under the inspiration of Holy Spirit. Well, then why are they making oopsies? Why do narratives that are supposedly inspired and guided by the Holy Spirit, why are there oopsies? There shouldn't be, because it's one spirit, right? So you can't have this both ways. And this is another thing, is in the evangelical theological model, the Holy Spirit, which happens to just conveniently be synonymous to the speaker's opinion, helps the evangelical determine which of these things is the true one and which was a human oopsie. And it's a little bit ad hoc there, but hey.
Okay.
It's
Hey, we don't know exactly what happened, but we can construct and try to make sense of a reasonable explanation. I think you've laid one out that's sufficient. So how confident are you if I said, Dominic, you're probably not a betting man. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You can bet on this.
I would bet on the fact that there is you ready for this? I would bet on the fact that there is a plausible explanation of this that holds up the historicity in 1 Samuel 17. Hold on a second. Holds up the historicity, but still recognizes that the author of 1 Samuel 17 is writing for an audience and striving to striving to communicate theological themes and purposes through the narrator's writing, or the narrator. Does that make sense? So none of the Bible, so I'm using the word historicity. None of the Bible is written exclusively for history. So what we have in 1 Samuel 17, I would say, is historical. And we have a reason. I would bet on a reasonable solution to holding up that historicity, but it's not exclusively historical.
Is this story
I think the thing
historical?
No. I mean,
And
maybe
possibly
at
say
a
that.
very maybe there's, at a very base level, there's a memory
Guy
of
fought tall
a
dude.
time that the guy fought a tall dude, right? So and then other memories attached to that too. We'll talk about here in a minute. But like, so the thing that that I think frustrates me the most about this is he talks about preserving an idea of the history in 2 Samuel or 1 Samuel chapter 17, and specifically they really want this story of David and Goliath to be the real one, right? They want that one. That's the one. But then he also talks about there being room for theologizing and for some creativity on the part of the narrator. The frustrating thing to me is he never talks about what that is, or and I guess, yeah, maybe that's a longer video, but I am just intensely interested to know where those boundaries are in his mind with a story like that.
It's also fascinating to me that in this particular, interpretation model, whatever, Elhanan is just not an acceptable option for who killed. It's not. It's like,
right? It's just not even on the table.
Determined it's not on the table. And I'm like, wait, hang on a sec. It actually, just bear with me, would make more sense narratively for David to kind of have, I guess, stolen valor would be the modern term for it, knowing his character is kind of shady and kind of crappy throughout his other stories. Like, he rapes Bathsheba, he sends her husband to the front lines to kill her so that he can marry her. There are other things that he
seems
does.
like it was a bad idea, but
the census, where he's like, God says, "Hey, don't count him." He's like, "What if I do anyway?" And it's like he lies
to the priest.
Lies.
He lies to the priest at Shiloh. He lies to the Philistines. He lies he's just a fucking. Sorry, he's just a liar. David's a liar.
He's not the most morally upstanding person, and it's like, okay, it would actually do them more of a service and make this text more consistent with itself if they said, "Nah, it was actually Elhanan probably, and David just has stolen valor," or people who were of the team David. Later on, we're like, no, we're just gonna give this one to David. Like, come on. This is you could make this easier on yourself. We're almost done.
Where are we at here? Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
There's just a minute.
Yeah, we are literally
left.
almost done. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
It looks like 1 Samuel is telling a historical account. The other accounts that we see they need to be reconciled with what we see in 1 Samuel, which is probably an earlier text. So what we'll do later on, if I can, is I'll show you a couple of words.
Oh, let me go back
Samuel
on that one.
is probably an earlier text.
Bruh. I need to hear that again. We need a replay, instant replay.
They need to be reconciled with what we see in 1 Samuel, which is probably an earlier text. So what we'll do later on, if I can, is I'll show you a couple of words that may have been mistaken. And
if you want to expand this using his measuring stick that he just put out, things later on need to match the earlier version because those are apparently written first. Then Genesis 2 needs to match Genesis 1, and it doesn't, homie. Like, you got problems at the jump.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
but again, I just I want to point this out. They're smuggling in this idea. Remember, we talked about this at the beginning, that they're smuggling in this idea that the story of David and Goliath, because it appears first in the narrative, must be the earlier source. That's it is just
Sure about that?
it is just not how this stuff works. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Katie Lewis took the words out of my mouth.
We'll work
That's
we'll
exactly
work
where I was
from
going with
there to a potential better solution, I guess you could say.
The traditional story, you're right, is that David killed Goliath. So why, when we go to 2 Samuel, do we have a difference? I think what happened is when you look closely in the Hebrew text, some of the words are so close that a simple change mistake accidentally could communicate that we're not talking about the Goliath himself, but his brother who did it. We can look at the Hebrew later, but I think that best probably explains it, which is why the NIV translates it the way that it does.
I love that response. And
No, it's hey, we need to give David credit for this. Hey, did you know that with Lachmi and Ahi, that's dude, that's too good. That's a clever redactor, y'all.
Yeah,
That redactor knows what he's doing, or she, but probably not. They know their language really, really well. And they're doing clever things with it.
Yep,
That's the easier explanation.
it is.
Not that they're too. So, my God.
also, there are a couple of other potential explanations,
That's
right?
great.
And so it's important to let people know as we work through this that
Great.
sometimes there are issues, they can be nuanced. There could be a couple of reasonable explanations. So for example, ach, the word ach, brother. So in one version, it's brother of. Achi, it looks very much like et, which is the direct object marker again. So those two words may have been also maybe conflated, and by the way, they look a lot alike. So you have aleph chet and aleph tav. They look very similar, right? So for those people that know Hebrew, right, you have aleph chet yud and aleph tav. They look very, very similar. So there's an issue with that Kaspers also brings up in his.
Yeah,
He's almost done. Just let him finish it. This is the last
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, there's
so
like,
just-
what,
just-
3
It's
seconds?
in his very good article that I would recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
that's-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, but so now, I mean, for real, like yes, it's possible to make this confusion. There you go. That's what they look like, everyone. Aleph Tav
In the
and
Babylonian
Aleph Chet
square script.
in the Babylonian square script. So that's important, right? Because we can set. We know that if that's the mistake, it certainly wasn't made very early. So you can't. I don't know. You can you see? You probably can't see my cursor.
Yeah.
I
I cannot see your
you?
cursor. It is very small.
No.
No, you're moving
Is
it
it
around.
anywhere? Let's see.
I do
Is
not
it a
see.
magnifying glass? Oh, I can zoom in. No, I can't. That's it. That's the best I can do. So,
Okay, I see a little thingy now. Okay.
do you see it? So this,
I
if you
do,
see the
yes.
thingy, it's like a little magnifying glass. This is a cat, okay, in the old Hebrew
like
script.
Like a
It
ladder,
looks like
almost.
kind of like a ladder, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm going to move over here. This is a tav. It's an X or a plus, right? So this confusion was certainly not made prior to the Babylonian exile. I will share a
Thank
different
you,
window.
Jason,
We can look
for
at.
conveniently putting that in so people can see it as well.
Oh, very nice. Yes, thank you for showing us what that looks like. So yeah, that wasn't the confusion, but we've got some other options here too, right? We can let's say this is from Elephantine, and these are so this is
Woo.
5th century, 4th century. This is pretty old. These are the Aramaic texts that were written by Jewish people living on Elephantine, which is in the Nile Delta in Egypt. So I think I tried to zoom in on this one, but it's you can see there's a great example. Can I? Oh,
This looks so much like Rocky
best
script.
I can do. I'm gonna put this. So this is 3rd let's do this so it's clear. Let's do second line. Second line, all right, right in the middle of your screen is a word, and you have the tav and the chet right next to each other. I don't know if my cursor is visible at all, but there are these two letters here, tav and chet. Now, this looks potentially possible to me. It looks to me like this is a confusion that you could potentially make, in the Persian period, when Jewish scribes were writing with this script. Let's look at another one. All right. And now we're going to actually look at, because this is fun, we're going to actually look at two manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls of Samuel. Okay. So this first one is 4Q52, 4Q Samuel B, which is the oldest of the two. It's one of our very oldest copies of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, I wish that I could get in closer, and I wish that I could show this more clearly. But if you look at, let's make that line number one. Line number one, you've got an et. Aleph, tav are the first two letters on the right-hand side of this manuscript. That's the word, 8. Okay. Now, there's a number of chets here on this manuscript. Maybe the most clear.
Got me earlier.
And this is good here too. If you go to line 2, and let's count the letters: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Letters 8 and 9
right next to each other.
You've got a tav and a chet right next to each other. And you can see, if you're picking up if you can see this clearly enough, you can see that the tav is quite a bit bigger than the chet in this hand. And it does look a fair bit different. If you notice the other tavs on this particular manuscript, they're a lot more rounded than the chet. They're just formed differently. It's a different looking sort of letter. I think it's much less likely that this is a mistake that could have been made, in the Hellenistic period. Probably didn't happen there. So I think that is probably not possible. And then we've got one more here. I'll show this other manuscript of Samuel. So this is 4Q51, which is a pretty important text because there is a lot of very interesting textual variation within this manuscript. It's also quite a bit newer than 4Q Samuel B. This is 4Q Samuel A. I will draw your attention here to line 2. This second word, you have it, Aleph Tav. It is right there. And then in the word right beside it, we've got Minchat. The mem is abraded, so you can't see all of it. Then there's a noon, then there's a chet and a tav. So here,
very close.
They look really close. So it is a plausible explanation, but then you have to think through when this is a change that potentially took place. So this manuscript is probably late Hasmonean, early Herodian. So like mid first century. That's Minchat Adonai. So this is mid first century BCE. So you're talking like 50s thereabouts. So it probably didn't happen this late though, right? I mean, I guess possibly, but yeah, most likely. And the reason why it didn't happen this late is because the Septuagint preserves a version for us that's a lot early. Quite a bit earlier than this. It's Hellenistic.
Super glad that I've taken some handwriting and calligraphy and things like that for Hebrew. I've got some books on that. I'm really glad that I did, because if I was a casual reader, to my eye, I would have possibly confused the het in the top there. But because I know how you're supposed to draw the letters, like what strokes in what order, I'm like, oh yeah, no, absolutely, that's a het and a top. Because a het, you would typically like draw 2 vertical lines and connect them, which goes back to like the earlier almost ladder shape. With tav, you draw basically what looks like a dalet and then a little foot that's almost a nun. And those strokes will tell you why they are not the same. It was easier to see on some of the earlier manuscripts as well, why the top
on
would be
this
rounded on one side, and it's like,
you can kind of see it, but a very common way of making the het, right, is the stroke on the right hand side that's connecting the crossbar to the downstroke is a little loop. So it's actually kind of you're not lifting your pen, you're just doing a loop and going down, right? So which is not something you do on the tav, but yes, very easy. It certainly is very easy to confuse, but I think this sets some delimitations for us on if this is the explanation when something like this took place. Couldn't have taken place this late. I just don't think there's any way. If you're going to suggest a time or a place for this to take place, I think it would have to be in the Persian period, is as the best option. But I think, again, I've got it up here. The real Melly, I think, is pointing out what's obvious. The audience probably assumes Hebrew has been written the same since it was developed at Babel, right? And they think it's the square script.
Yeah.
So
and Jason's explaining the script strokes. Like there's a rounded beginning one, then a square one that's very like right angles, versus the rounded het versus the more square,
that's great,
perpendicular stuff.
Thank you, Jason. That's very
and
good.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. Switching away from the Phoenician alphabet or abjad was a mistake. We would have a lot fewer of these explanations going on.
With all of that out of the way, we need to talk about what happened. Okay, finally, we need to talk about what actually happened in this story. Okay, I believe that scholars are in basic universal agreement that the oldest form of this story is definitely in 2 Samuel 21, and yes, Elchanan killed Goliath the Gittite.
Justice for Elchanan.
Justice for Elchanan.
Yeah.
But there's a fair bit going on, and we need to think through what's happening. Why is it happening? In the first place, yes, the simplest explanation of this is that at some point somebody took this story of Elchanan and attributed it to David. I think there's a fair bit more development that occurs, at the time the story about the death of Goliath was written. And I also don't think it's just Elchanan. There are other texts that the writer of the story of the death of Goliath is incorporating into his narrative.
I have to do this for future apologia. There is another.
He's not here today, I don't think, is he?
He was earlier.
Oh, was he? Okay. All right. Good. I have to let the dog out because he's going nuts in the door here. So excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple chats I'll read while you're doing that. Alrighty. Katie Lewis earlier said, side note, Elchanan is the Hebrew name of Goliath, a lawyer who's doing the Lord's work defending voting rights in the U.S. I think about that sometimes. Don't let anybody steal that man's valor. Okay. We answered this a little bit earlier, just not on stream. Some people were discussing the other translations that also use
they correct the Samuel text according to Chronicles.
The incorrect Samuel. Yeah. Masageretic texts. Yeah. And
Very
like,
nice.
well, that's gonna need a malach. That's a little bit of punish there. Jason for 2 says, so the NIV continued the work of the chronicler.
He sure as hell did. Yes, he did. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Katie Lewis, when I was discussing vowel shift, is a California vowel shift. I don't want to say it's just the California vowel shift, because I do hear it across broad swaths of North American English speakers. However, I think you're on the right track there. So, language, it's fun.
It's very fun. Yes. Oh, I was trying to. Did I?
Oh.
Let's.
that one.
I shut down one of my apps, and I'm
Oh.
experiencing regret. So I need to reopen it. But it's god damn. What are you doing? So there. Okay, it's coming. All right. So yeah. The 2 Samuel 21 version is the earliest. So what on earth is going on here? Let's look. So here is 1 Samuel 17. We've read bits of this already. We will read some more as I go through the explanation here, but I want to point something else. We've talked about this already too. The battle takes place at this place called Ephes Damim, the place of no blood. Very interestingly,
the head off.
Right. But I think it's fair, because it's if you're thinking of it, it's not, if you're thinking of this as a place of no blood in the context of a battle, where cutting off a head is just a little bit of blood. It's not also a blood bath.
Either there were no fights here, or nobody is supposed to fight here. Like, this is an off limits place. Like, it could be either one of those.
Yeah. So there is another story about another member of the fighting men of David, these mighty warriors who had their acts of valor memorialized. There is another story which preserves the name of this place. It also occurs in 2 versions, one in Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 23, and another one in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, which is the one that I want to look at here. It features this guy by the name of Eleazar, son of Dodo, the Ahohite. He among the 30 warriors, David's famous 30 warriors. He was with David. Where? He was with David in Pas Damim.
No!
This is the place. The Philistines were gathered there for battle. So this guy, Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, he's going to be important to this whole discussion. But now we have to turn. That's 1 Chronicles 11, 12 to 13. Don't worry about the text. I've got the texts here. We have to go to the other version of the story, the earlier version of this story, which takes place in 2 Samuel 23. Remember, I said there's a couple of these lists of the mighty men of David. There's this one in 2 Samuel chapter 21, which features Elchanan. There's another one in 2 Samuel chapter 23, and there it has this other figure, right? This story of Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite. So I think that what's happening, first of all, in 1 Samuel 17 is it's preserving this place of this famous battle in Pas Damim, where Eleazar, the son of Dodo, had this great fight. What is it, Vish?
Teacher, do you know that Pas Damim is just an aleph difference from Ephes Damim?
Yes. It's the same place. It is absolutely the same place. It's the same place.
This is amazing.
Okay.
Y'all,
Yeah.
this is like
All
a
right.
wild Pokemon appears.
Now,
Dang, are we going with justice for Elazar here? Holy crap. This is deep lore.
there are 2 sons of Dodo.
There is another.
And they're from Bethlehem. So
Yo.
this is the story of Elazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, as it appears in 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 9 to 10. So we saw in the Chronicles version, it preserves the name of this place, Pastamim. It doesn't appear in this version of the story, but it's the same story. Here's the version of the story in 2 Samuel 23, verses 9 to 10. And next to him, that is David, was Elazar, son of Dodo, the Ahohite, among the 30 warriors, was with David when they taunted the Philistines. That word there, to taunt, that is that's charaf. You've got, if you can grab 1 Samuel 17 Vish.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a few places here. Verse 10.
I was
What
just
does it say? 1 Samuel 17, verse 10.
Uh-huh. I literally had it right here.
And the Philistine ended. So I now Kedafti. I'm taunting
Mock.
the ranks of Israel.
I mock you.
Bite
my thumb.
Verse 25. Verse 25 in this story of David and Goliath. Here we go. David asked the men. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and on Israel's side, they were saying, "Do you see that man coming out? He comes out lechoref to taunt Israel."
Mock. Bite
Verse
my
36.
thumb.
This is David speaking, right? Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and that uncircumcised Philistine shall end up like one of them, for he has Kedef. He has defied, mocked the ranks of the living God. We got one more here in verse 45. Verse 45 of this story. David replied to the Philistine, "You come at me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come at you in the name of Yahweh Tsabaoth, Yahweh of hosts, the God of the ranks of Israel, whom you have mocked." It's the same word, guys.
Get that suffix there.
Yeah. So same word, right? It is the warriors of David when they taunted the Philistines who were gathered there for battle. Then what happens? Israel withdrew to a man. He stood his ground. So all Israel falls back. Elazar is standing there all alone, and he struck down Philistines until his arm was tired. His hand still clutching the sword. Okay, now it becomes clear.
The sword again.
I spent a lot of time on this, right? I talked about whether or not Goliath was killed with the sling or with the sword. His hand was still clutching the sword. Yahweh wrought a great victory on that day. And then what happens? Only then did the people return after him for plunder.
And
chase them away, right? So yeah, we've got some other stuff. If you bring up 1 Samuel chapter 17 again. There's a couple of other things we can look at here, right? Like the people fall back. That's part of this story. We have this preserved in the story. I think it's verses 24 to 25. I think is one place where this is mentioned, or it is
when
that,
everyone
is
on
that it?
Israel's side saw the man,
They
fled in
fled in terror.
This is
Right?
cool. Dang.
Yeah. And on the side they
Ella's
were
her
saying, "Do you
one-man
see that
army."
man?" Yeah. Yeah.
No
What does that
kidding.
sound like? On Israel's side, they were saying, "Do you see that man coming out? He comes out to taunt Israel," right? Again, that's the that's and then I think in verses 52
Also,
to
this
53.
here, Kipp,
Yep.
just I know this is gonna sound freaking tinfoil hat. I think the text is telling you why they changed it. Do you see that man coming out? He comes out to defy or mock Israel. The one who kills him will be rewarded by the king with great riches, and he'll give him his daughter in marriage.
Oh. Getting it's
submit
kind of
that
segueing.
there could be the struggle for the throne. This is telling you
Elchanan
why they
involved in
changed
that?
it. Or Eleazar.
Or Eleazar?
I mean, listen.
One of them?
If you saw one guy fight a freaking pack of Philistines by himself,
until his
like
arm
the
got tired.
Doom guy, he just fight until his arm gets tired, and he's just like, stand up, dude. Who would you rather have as king? A freaking pretty boy shepherd from nowhere, or this guy?
Hey,
and through a series of other,
that,
intrigues or whatever, David becomes the dominant house. He takes over, whatever.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, no,
and later redactors who are like, "Hey, Team David, Judah's the center. What if Eleazar was a contender? He could have been a contender.
He's a contender." Nice. All right, go down to verses 52 to 53. Because I think it's here where it says
Israel and Judah rose up with a war cry and pursued the Philistines all the way to Guy and up to the gates of Ekron. The Philistines fell mortally wounded along the road from Sharim up to Gath and Ekron. Then the Israelites returned from facing the Philistines and looted their camp.
Okay, that's that again. That is the same verb. The looting that takes place. That's what it says here in 2 Samuel. Oh, sorry, I have to take this off and put mine back up. That's what it says here in 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 10. Only then did the people return after him for plunder. All right. So I submit Eleazar has a role to play in this story. Now, notice here I said it conflates the hero story of two Bethlehemites. It gets a little bit more complicated, and this is part of the problem, right? With these stories of the heroes of David, there's multiple stories. There's a couple different versions of them. The chronicler preserves some differences in the stories that don't appear in Samuel. So what do we have here? This is from Chronicles. What does it say about Elchanan? Asahel was the brother of Joab among the 30. Elchanan was the son of Dodo.
Justice for these brothers. Justice for Elchanan and Eleazar.
Couple of Bethlehemites. Who's the most famous Bethlehemite?
By the way, I do want to share something really quick, because I think you'll see where I'm putting down. I want you to notice something. Like when they're going through the annals, the valiant warriors, I want to notice. Oh, of course it's not sharing the right tab, of course. Okay. Notice how Dodo's spelled.
Oh yeah, right. That's very good as well.
Drop that Vav off, and it becomes
David.
David.
Right.
Yo.
So
Yo.
wow. Yeah.
What?
I was yeah. I don't know. This all of this stuff feels you're a bias. You're a very based
noticer.
noticer.
This is the only context where I will accept that. I will accept it this one time. Y'all, this is wild. See, I've had this pet theory for a while that the redactors will go in and do whatever they need to do for whatever polemical or political reasons they do it. But they never can expunge every single thing because a lot of these narratives are in the public consciousness. People have heard them. They've retold them. They're like folklore. They're part of your oral history. So you can't expunge them entirely. But when you change what you can, you always leave traces of what it used to be behind.
It's tough to do it to get away cleanly. I expect it's probably why you know it's probably why the Muslim scribes just decided to eliminate all the ones that and even then didn't manage to pull it off, right?
Hey, like, everybody send us your copy. We want to make sure they match. Wink, wink. Oh no, we accidentally burned all the variants. Hey guys, check out our non-conflicting copies. Yeah, this is also good. Notice the L base names for Elchanan and Elazar, whereas David's name's not theophoric for either Adonai or El.
Oh, so I do think there is something to that. Now, there's a couple of explanations for this by scholars. Now, one of them is that David is not a real guy. He's not an actual person. And that the name David is derived from this word that basically means the beloved one, the lovely one, right? Like the beloved one, right? So it could just be that, or there is some thought. I think there's reasonable speculation here that if David was an historical figure, he was not a Judahite. He was not an Ephraimite or a Benjamite or one of these coming from one of these tribes of Yahweh. There's some thought that David was a Philistine.
Dun, dun, dun!
Not a Yahweh worshiper.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right? He was just he
like
was
wrestling.
just
Wrestling
he was a Philistine warlord who came into Jerusalem or Hebron and set up a fiefdom there and was very successful. And then rulers in the city of Jerusalem at some point in time started to take on, whether they were his direct descendants or not, they certainly started to attach themselves to this legacy of this Philistine. And if you're interested in about
it's happened before.
Some of that, right? Yeah. And within the texts, right, some of the things that we see, the bodyguard, David and his 600 Gittites.
600 Gittites. Yes.
So one of the things that we see frequently mentioned in the texts about David are when his bodyguard is described. They're the Kaftarim and the Pelatim, which sounds a lot like Pelashtim.
Pelashtim,
right? Yeah. And the Kaftarim too. These are warriors from Crete, as near as we can figure, right? So it's sort of like there's some sense that is closest bodyguards. Like his army is composed of basically like Philistines, like sea people, or their descendants, right? And then you've got this other really interesting story of how David, when he's fleeing from Saul, has to go and actually seek refuge in Philistia. He allies himself with the king of the Philistines. He ends up setting up camp in a city given to him by the king of the Philistines called Ziklag. Okay.
Yep.
And he, that's his base of operations there.
Another
So
thing is
it just
lack of theophorics in most of the Torah, like the patriarchs. A lot of them don't have Ale or Yahwistic theophoric names. And I mean, the Torah, it straight up tells you that Avram was a wandering Aramaean. He's not from that little tiny nucleus around Jerusalem or even Samaria. He's from over in Ur. It's like halfway to Babylon, you know? Another thing, I wonder if this Philistine David idea has anything to do with the idea that Yahweh worship came from Edom, from the south.
Well, it sure as hell didn't come from Philistia. That's probably well, I actually I shouldn't speak. So I didn't say that, but I think it's I'm still a proponent of the of the southern origin theory. So I think,
I mean, look, just spitballing. I haven't looked into this yet, but if David's a warlord, you got to have a big ass army if you're going to take over places and set up little fiefdoms and whatever. What if you're swinging through Edom and you're like, yeah, bring the god, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a resonance with that. Rachel was like, yeah, we're leaving to go move, but I'm just going to take my dad's idols. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is, let me see, is this the last point I have here? Oh no, I've got one more. So this now, I know you're very, very big on the justice for Elchanan and Eleazar train here, Vish, but when scholars talk about the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, there is quite a bit of thought that there was actually an origin story of David in which he fought a great big Philistine. And then at some point, this Philistine came to be identified with Goliath, the Gittite, whom, Elchanan killed and defeated. So the transfer there is mostly in the name and the characterization. The Philistine whose spear was the size of a weaver's beam, right? That's where this comes from, is from the Elchanan story. And then finally, these are the two brothers stories, right? We have Elchanan, who defeated the Philistine Goliath of Gath, whose spear was the size of the weaver's beam, and Eleazar, who stood alone against the Philistines while the rest of Israel stood back and then went in afterwards for the plunder. And there's mockery taking place in there.
And you have brothers killing the foreign brothers. That's too good.
Yeah.
That's too
pretty good too, right? Wow. That's pretty cool. So there you have it.
Exactly, Simone. It's almost like after a bunch of conquests, the king takes credit for all the work that everyone else does. Yep.
Sure does. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Man, this is good.
And I think it stands to reason too. Like it bears some looking into. I'm not the one who's done this, but now I'm kind of interested in how, in terms of the narratives of David, in terms of the David stories and the tales, I'm curious now about where scholars tend to set the dates for these stories of the warriors of David, of his great men, of the heroes. And it kind of has me wondering, well, maybe these like predate even the idea that there was one guy who galvanized the entire nation. Maybe these were just a collection of stories of great men who were all part of this pre-monarchic Israelite tribal league. I don't know. This is me spitballing and now wanting really to know about the antiquity of those stories in particular. So, but that's all I got. What do you guys think? Is that fun? I think that's pretty fun. It's way the fuck more fun than just saying, oh, well, you know, there's some, I don't know.
Well, they can't conflict, so
yeah.
Oh. Justice for Elhanan and Eleazar, sons of Dodo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
This is cool. It's it's a very cool text. This was just what I needed as a palate cleanser after last week. So there are still over 120 of you watching. Hey, did you what?
Give us a fit check.
Oh, yeah. It's that
slide to your right. Yeah.
I won't say it because
I effing love the Bible. This is so cool.
It's fun. This was a very fun one. So look, Jace loved it. He said
oh yeah,
this is
good.
This
I'm
was
actually
thrilling.
Me, yeah. I mean, I'm taking notes on this. I'm hosting somebody for Shabbat dinner here in a couple hours, or in 45 minutes actually. And I'm gonna be like showing them the notes, and I'm gonna be like, check this out. So this is gonna be a conversation on the Shabbat table tonight. It's gonna be awesome.
It's very good.
A couple comments, and then we can
stop this. All right.
Okay. Regarding rulers that were foreign, the Egyptians do that. Sennacherib does that. Mesha does that. Yep. Okay. Interesting how the royal annals of war tend to be, and the king, did all this stuff and killed all these men and took out these captives. Yeah.
It's true, right?
Eleazar's the guy they based Rambo on.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
John Gurham says David was the least of his brothers, so he definitely wasn't hot shit. Yeah.
Before I have to say so. I do have to say something. I have to say something about Rambo though. Okay.
Okay. John Rambo.
First Blood is First Blood. I was, the other Rambo movies were okay, but First Blood was easily one of my favorite. Still is one of my favorite action films. I think Sylvester Stallone is amazing in that movie. I think it's just an incredibly well-made movie, and even the other thing that I love about that movie is that First Blood was filmed in Hope, British Columbia, which is literally just up the road from me.
Whoa.
Yeah. Wow. There is actually, it's not a giant. There's a great big Rambo statue in Hope.
Right on.
It's pretty great. But it's like, it's seriously, if you live in the area and you watch that movie, it is just like, you're like, oh my God, like, oh wow, look, I was fishing there a few weeks ago.
See, Jason's picking up what I was laying down. The B'nai Dodo, the David. That's exactly where I was going with that. Oh, my brain is like,
they're all Bethlehemites, right?
That's why it worked. That's why it worked.
That's why it worked. So this was much fun. Thanks everyone for sticking with it. Yeah. I like these kind of streams. So that'll do it for us. You got anything to say or to pitch or to plug as we head out?
I just had the freaking fundraiser link, and I was gonna drop it back in the chat. Stall real quick.
Okay, I will do my stuff first. So,
okay.
Are you ready already?
No, go for it.
Okay. Tomorrow is Saturday, which means that Vish and I will be back on Dapper Dinosaur's channel at 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern for another thrilling episode of Dapper Reacts. Be sure to come and say hi and to check it out. And because tomorrow's Saturday, you also know that that means tomorrow night is another installment of Budget Scripture Saturday with Nitty and Dr. Tapioca Weasel. So that starts at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. It's fun. It's a very fun show. So come and check us out there. And then next week on Wednesday, I will be making an appearance on Detroit Freethinkers, I think is the channel. It's Kelly.
Oh yeah,
Kelly's channel. The
yeah.
Detroit Atheist Queen. She wants me to come and talk about slavery. So she gets Timu Dr. Josh Bowen to come and talk about the differences between chattel slavery as is presented in the Hebrew Bible and chattel slavery in modern times, especially in the antebellum South. So that's a conversation that we are going to have on Wednesday. I believe it's either at 10 or 11 a.m. Pacific, which is like what is that? That's like 1 or 2 in the afternoon Eastern time. So I don't have a link. There's the fundraiser, guys. Make sure that that you grab that, and I will copy it and
help me get housing, because I got screwed over in a very aggressively horrible way by a couple of roommates, one in particular, and they left me with like the rest of a lease without giving notice. They left me holding 2 months worth of rent and utility bills and all the other things by myself, and then just pissed off. So yeah, I got to get out of here by the end of the month, and I've been looking for new places to live, and that is incredibly stressful, as many of you may know. So on my very meager income, that would be something that would potentially threaten my housing status. Yeah. So I would prefer not to sleep on the street. So that's what this one's for.
That's what that one's for. So please help Vish out. And I will be sure to grab that and drop it in the description of the video as well. When so you can you'll be able to. I should have done it before I opened the screen.
I
My apologies
keep forgetting because
yeah. Okay. So I think I think that's it. And then yes, next week on Thursday, there will be another episode of Kiryat Brit, the Hebrew Reading Show, and Jason Hare
this week. Yes.
will be joining me, which is fun. He's going to be tuning in from Tel Aviv, which is far, and it's dark and in the middle of the night when he does it. He actually one time, I think it was the first time that Jason co-hosted with me. He was doing it from work at the he's a manager, a desk manager at a hotel, and so he was at work. It was interesting. So I don't think you're working. Are you?
No, he's at work right now.
He's at work right now, but I don't think you're working next Thursday. Are you?
This Thursday.
It's fine. We'll get through it. But Jason is he'll be at home on Thursday, which makes it a little easier.
You have to read
if you don't
Obadiah this week, but I would like you guys to read it at some point.
With Obadiah. Okay. Well, I will take a look. All right. And and we'll see. Some of this has to do with skill level too, right? Like, is it a readable enough text? So I don't know. I actually don't even know if I've ever read Obadiah, but I'll take a look.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't know if I have actually. So, but
the only reference to Sepharad in the entire Hebrew Bible.
To what?
Sepharad, which would later become
yeah,
applied
yeah.
to
Yeah.
Iberia in Spain. Yeah.
Oh, neat. That's cool. So okay.
Yeah, I did a whole thing on this. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's just over 20 verses. It's all about Edom and Sarfat. Yeah. So maybe we will. But Jason's great, you guys, because he runs a free resource called the Hebrew Cafe, and his Hebrew is like 1,000,000 times better than all of ours. And he's an excellent teacher, and just is really good at popularizing and expanding people's knowledge of the language. So you absolutely need to check out his stuff, the Hebrew Cafe. All right, so that is it for us.
I gotta go
Vish
cook.
has to go to
I have
dinner.
a dinner guest. So I gotta
Oh,
go.
nice. That's
I set my rice cooker. It has a little timer mode where you can go wait this many hours and then turn on. So I went ahead and set that like earlier today. I washed the rice, I did all that other stuff, and I was like, okay, beep, 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 set it. And I think I've got like some ground beef, and that it's only going to take a few minutes to cook that up. So that's not going to be very hard, but I want to make sure I get it done.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sticking with us
Yeah.
the entire time. So everyone, have a great night. Stay safe. Be good.
Be
Ha
excellent
tikva.
to each other.